Okay. Last time we did Zencaster, things were very chaotic, so let's hope we did it right this time.
Yes. Until further notice, things are 15 seconds in, we're good.
Yeah, we're rolling and we're not stopping yet.
Okay. Great.
Now we're just gonna watch the timer the whole time.
I know. We'll be waiting for some notification that's like, I don't know, the error sound from Microsoft Word that's like,
Burp.
I feel like I'm gonna hear that from childhood or something.
That
yeah.
one?
Or yeah, that's the one. You nailed it.
Hi.
Hi, how are you? What's your vibe today? You feel low energy to me, and I don't like it.
I am low energy. I like keep falling asleep during the day, which is not normal for me. So I'm like, I don't know. I probably my iron's screwed up again. Because I always stop taking iron and I'm like, I'm fine now. And then, you know.
Oh, Christine.
Goes away. I'm drinking my large McDonald's iced coffee. Classic.
Maybe throw some iron in there.
Yummy.
Speaking of McDonald's, are you in on the Grimace shake train? Do you know about this trend?
No, I know about the Grimace birthday, but I don't know about the shake trend. What's that?
Oh, you missed it, but it's about to be over because I think it was just during June, but it was my favorite TikTok trend. There's so Grimace, there was a shake in honor of his birthday. And by the way, for people who don't know who Grimace is, because Allison learned this month.
No. Okay, because I was judging Gen Z so hard because they were like, what is a Grimace? And I'm like, who are you people? Like, where are you from? I'm not even barely from this country and I know who Grimace is.
I know.
Allison didn't know? God damn it.
He was my favorite character of the McDonald's crew. He was my the Hamburglar really pissed me off. But
really a delight in the worst way. But Grimace is a champion. I don't know how people don't know who he is. It's his freaking birthday.
Grimace is a good time. He was Ronald McDonald's best friend. And but so anyway, they made a shake for him, which the whole mystery originally was, what does it even taste like? Because it was kind of just a vague purple flavor.
It was just purple flavor.
Some people were saying it would taste like a wild berry thing. Anyway, but so TikTok started this trend, I guess, from that mystery and like some people not knowing who Grimace was, that like it turned into like if you drank the milkshake, something spooky would happen to you. And then it turned into like, oh, Grimace is after you.
Wait, what?
And so, it became a whole thing. But then it turned, and now everyone feels really bad because now there's a trend going where everyone's showing like collages of like the most horror centric or cinematically scary TikToks people made after they drank a Grimace shake. And then they're showing a picture of like Grimace from the 70s as a little kid. And it's like, he just wanted to celebrate his birthday.
Wait,
and all of you made fun of him.
I'm so upset.
It's truly, go look at my Instagram after this because I posted one of the TikToks that are like that. But I was fully invested in like the horror movie of Grimace and who is Grimace and he's coming to get you. And then all of the videos started turning into like pictures of like little Grimace and how he's so sad no one wants to celebrate with him.
I mean, the fact that his name is Grimace, if you didn't know who he was, you'd be like, what the fuck kind of a name is Grimace? So I do get the like immediate distrust.
Anyway.
Every time we did a lot of road tripping recently, we've stopped at a lot of McDonald's with Leona, and every time they're like trying to push those Grimace shakes on me, and I'm like, I'm good. I'm in the car for 12 more hours. I think my tummy can't handle purple flavor right now. We'll just stick with the usual.
I am upset I never tried it, but I feel like I've tasted it based on everyone else talking about it.
Yeah, I feel like maybe you know better than you think what it actually tastes like.
Anyway, I'm glad you're drinking McDonald's.
Guess why I drink this week? Do you want to ask me?
I do want. Is it because you saw Taylor Swift?
Oh no, but that was definitely a highlight of my life for sure. Sure.
What are you drinking?
Leona said Mothman.
Wow.
She started saying Mothman. It wasn't even like, she has a book, I think you got it for, called either you, Eva, or I don't know. It's called Baby Mothman, and we read it before bed every night. And the other day she was like, Mothman baby. And I was like, you just said Mothman baby. I can't believe my ears right now. So
it's the ultimate maternal goal, isn't it?
It was, and I feel like I've like exceeded all my parenting expectations. But the fact that I couldn't immediately call you because I had to wait for us to record was so annoying. So it's like, Em needs to know this. And we were just talking the other day. You were asking me like, what words does Leona say? And that night she said Mothman, and I was like, oh my God, now I have to wait 3 days to tell Em. But anyway, that's the big news on my end, and I feel like it's pretty groundbreaking.
Well, nothing I have to say after that. The whole episode is over now. Well,
imagine if she said also, Grimace.
if she goes Gwymeth with like a double lisp.
Well, she says Ote, which I always thought was just kind of like a cliche thing, but she's like Ote, and I'm like, whoa, kids actually do say that. Ote.
Oh, it's so sweet. Well, so now that she said Mothman, we have to collect all of the cryptids out of her mouth. So try to get
Nessie's
Bigfoot next.
Probably easy, right? Nessie, Bigfoot.
Can she do S's yet though? Nessie?
Or
would it be like Nettie?
She calls her pacifiers her passies. And she has a teacher called Miss Cassie, and she calls her Miss Passy.
That's precious.
So I feel like she could probably say Nessie.
Okay, cool. Okay.
And she has plenty of Nessie books and stuffed animals. So, we have some teaching tools to utilize.
We all did a very good job of preparing her for indoctrination.
Yeah. I mean, literally, like you threw me a surprise baby shower that was cryptid themed. Like this was destined.
You know what else was destined? Remember when I found that Happy Halloween banner and I cut out the letters and rearranged them, and it spelled like Happy Leona or something?
It literally spelled Happy Leona. Like the word Leona is in Halloween. The word Leona is also very close to lemon, which I did not realize until literally my child was born and someone commented on my Instagram post, and I was like, well, it's too late now.
It's so yeah, she's destined for some spooky things. I hope she knows that.
I think she does.
Christine. Well, how was Taylor Swift before we do anything else?
I gotta say, I feel like I played it down so much when I was like, I forgot I was going. It was like the best, and I cried because
you
Taylor
cried?
Swift is I cried during Enchanted because that was the first song that like my brother told me like the lore about years and years and years ago, and I got just so into that song, and that was like my entry point into Taylor Swift. And so I cried when that came on. It was but I met a listener who gave me one of her Swiftie bracelets, like the beaded bracelets, and
that's cute.
And some body glitter. She put body glitter on me.
Hey!
And I said, what's your era? And she said, well, my name's Sarah, so I'm in the Sarah era. And I was like, whoa.
They said, I have my own fucking era.
Yeah, I was like, enough said. I'm not going to question you any longer.
Well, did you practice your 1, 2, 3, let's go, bitch? Or
that was so funny. The person behind me, the girl behind me was like with her dad, and she shouted it, but like too early. And then she was so embarrassed. But then I knew it was coming, so I got to do it with everybody. And I turned around and I was like, thank you for doing it. She's like, I'm sorry. I was like, no, you warned me so that I knew when to do it with everybody else. She gave me like a heads up.
Okay, so I feel like that was like I somehow like astral projected into that person's body to give you a cue. I was like, I know you didn't learn in time. She was
so horrified, and I was like, no, that was your soul preparing me for the moment. Don't worry.
I do feel so bad for her though, because she's probably not ever going to see Taylor again, and it was her one time. I feel so bad for her.
Okay, well that's she might see Taylor again. I don't think this is the end. That girl was probably 15.
To go now just to redo it. She has to.
Oh God. Anyway, it was really funny, and I turned around and she started apologizing to me. I was like, imagine if I was actually mad at you for that. Like, what an insane thing to do and feel. But thank you. I felt very prepared because of you, Em, and because of your astral soul projecting into the teenager behind me.
It's a lot of work to make sure you're on top of things, but that's what I'm here for. Especially when
it's just pop culture trends, nothing else.
But it's just Taylor and Grimace.
Yeah. At least I knew who Grimace was, okay, Allison? Jeez.
Okay, well, I don't really have a reason to drink this week, except I got myself a new cup, and I love her. I love her.
I'm sorry, where did you get that?
Girl, the ice is probably
that looks like Grimace threw it up.
I liked it because it's giving ectoplasm,
It
kind of.
is.
And it's much more neon than it looks on camera.
It
Like,
looks
it's very...
like it's burning my retinas, so I don't know how much more neon it could get. Em's holding a neon green, like it looks like slime colored cup with a purple lid, a Grimace colored lid.
So there's nothing I love more than a bright neon dark purple contrast. There's just nothing better.
It's true.
Nothing like it. And I have been one of those people where every time I go to Starbucks, which feels like 15 times a day sometimes, every time I go, I look at the shelves and I always point out a cup and I go, oh, that one's cute. Oh, if I had to get one, I'd get that one. Oh, that one's nice.
I've done that.
And I've always kept it together. And we know I love an impulse buy, and I still have never done it.
That's impressive, by the way.
And not only, I didn't even go to Starbucks and see this on the shelf. I saw someone say on TikTok, by the way, Starbucks released their summer colors.
Oh, you went to find it.
This was one of the ones that they showed, and I went, it must be mine. So I went out of my way to go find it instead of just like window browsing.
Yeah, that was me with my cup. I've never ever bought a cup, and then one day I went in and they had this really tall my pink to blue, like, and then you were like, those are bicolors, and I went, oh yeah, maybe that's why. I was like, I need that. But it was so beautiful and like kind of studded, and like I had no self control. I was like, I must own this immediately.
There is one mug of theirs I've gotten, which was, if anyone remembers, like 6 months ago, they were really pushing these like teal blue ceramic mugs, and I got one of those. And now I have this one. And now I have a mug and I have a water cup, and I can never do it again. But that's okay.
Em tells me all the time we're forbidden from buying them more mugs, and then they go out and buy themselves mugs. And I'm like, God,
Christine, I literally got a mug this morning.
No, you didn't. What is wrong with you? And the worst part is there's so many mugs that I want to get you, and I'm always like, no, Em's gonna kill me. And then at like holidays, sometimes you give me 2 mugs, and I'm like, wait a minute, why is this a ban from me to you, but not the other way around? Like, you think I don't have too many mugs?
Because, okay, I don't really have a real reason, except I'm trying so hard to be good about mugs, but I'm my worst enemy. Because at least I put boundaries up with everyone else, but I still fucking slip when it comes to myself buying mugs. And
Okay.
Allison has told me so many times we're not
Yeah.
allowed to have any more
I'm
mugs.
more scared
Please
of
don't get-
Allison. If I'm being honest,
too.
I'm more scared of Allison. Yeah. I mean, I kind of knew in the back of my mind, like, this wasn't really about me and Em. Allison would kill me if I added more fucking annoying mugs to your collection. But, I love a good mug.
But you know what? Recently I've gotten, by the way, Allison, while you're listening to this, I got a bone to pick with you. Let's discuss right now.
Oh, no.
It's because, okay, so here's the thing. Realistically, no one needs more than 1 mug, maybe 2 come cleaning day, or but we have easily like 40 mugs between the two of us. It's just too many.
Always.
But and I understood her cries when she was like, please stop the madness. I want out. I don't want these mugs anymore.
Stop the madness.
And I thought, you know what? That's a fair request. And then someone really got into like the world of cocktails, and homegirl literally is gonna go take a bartending 6-week night class about becoming like a full blast bartender.
What?
For fun. And
she takes an Excel course in college, and then in her 30s she's like, I'm gonna learn how to make cocktails. What is going on with this one?
She has become so into bartending and so into cocktails. She demands that by the way, we're a family of 2. One of us does not drink.
You don't drink alcohol.
And she has demanded that we have every type of glass, every type of mixer, every type of shaker. So I don't know the words to everything, but our entire cabinet, which you've seen our kitchen, we are very fortunate to have a massive amount of cabinets, all of it filled with glassware that only she can use. So I'm like, you know what? Fuck you. I'm going to have my mugs. That's that. You know what I mean?
You know what? Yeah, you get your own little drawer of mugs, and that'll be your man cave.
Thank you. I feel like a dirty little gremlin now, because every time I get a new mug, I kind of go, I test the waters. And I'm like,
just hide it.
I'm like, look what I got. And then if she says something, I'm like, let's investigate your wardrobe.
So you're ready to just whip open all the cabinets like a fucking poltergeist
of Brandy sniffers, whatever they're called. So anyway.
Your armoire of Brandy sniffers. What the fuck is happening at your house right now?
Anyway, it's a hot button issue with us where we don't have any room for plates. We literally, Christine, all the cups in the world, we own 4 fucking plates. 4. Like if 5 people came over for dinner, we wouldn't have enough.
You take a cooking class and you can buy any plate you want. Be like, it's for my new hobby.
We literally, if we haven't done the dishes recently, we just don't have plates. Like that's it. But we have enough cups probably to last the entire year without washing a single one. So anyway, you know what? I'm back to mugs. So give me all the mugs you want. Oh, Allison's so scared right now. I can feel it. I said it, and I knew she hated it.
I'm happy to be out of this equation. I'm just gonna remove myself and just let you two handle this one.
Anyway, that's why I drink, because apparently Allison and I are gonna duke it out over the mugs when she hears this episode. So
I think a lot of people, including myself, can relate to that. So don't worry.
If you are in a relationship with somebody and you're the mug collector, please post your pictures and tag us. We'd like to see your mugs.
Oh, yeah. Especially if you have some like quirky, cool ones, you know?
Ugh, I love a quirky, cool mug. You have no idea. Eva got me a mug. She's been breaking the rule, by the way. She's already getting me new mugs.
Because you break the rule every time. And it's like, you know what? At a certain point, Eva and I were like, what? Fuck it. Like, fuck it. If M's breaking the rules, we're breaking the rules.
Well, for my birthday, she got me a mug that looks like a golf course, and there's a hole cut out at the bottom, and it comes with a little golf club and ball, and the mug is the hole-in-one. So while you're drinking tea,
how could we not buy you that? Like, I mean,
and the golf club is a pen.
Like, how could Eva not look at that and go, I mean, I'm gonna skip this one? Are you kidding? Like, hello, what do you expect?
Anyway. So, also, since we're talking so much about drinking, and the show is literally called And That's Why We Drink, and like 300.5 episodes later, I am starting this trend. This is your daily reminder to drink some water. You hydrated, well, I guess dehydrated, funky people. I don't know. I didn't finish the insult in my brain, so. But everyone drink some water.
Okay, I'm drinking coffee. Does that count?
Sure. Today, yes.
It has a lot of vanilla in it.
And with that, maybe we should start our stories today, Christine.
Let's do it.
Okay. I think you'll like this one. I think there will be parts where you hate this one.
Uh-oh.
But I think you'll like it, at least for the title. Are you ready?
Yes.
This is the story of the UFO abduction of Snippy the horse.
What the F is happening? What? Okay. So before we get into it, I know you're very excited. I have to bring you completely down really quick because there is a content warning. The horse dies. This is the first case of UFOs being linked to animal cattle mutilation. I'm so sorry. Oh no. Well, thank you for appreciating how sensitive I am, like a big baby. I talk about dead people all day, and then it's like fucking a cow, and I'm like crying over here.
The irony is a little obvious, but I understand though.
There's no controlling it. I can't explain it.
Well, so I will, if someone else is also sensitive to animal, I don't know if cruelty is the right word because we don't actually know what happened, but mutilation. I'll bring it up when the time comes, but it's gonna be quick.
Okay.
But the rest of it is worth it because this is the abduction of Snippy the horse. So, you know. And if you're a horse girly, this is for you.
Yeah, this is for you. And now me vicariously.
Yeah, today Christina's a horse girl.
I am, and
okay.
I was trying to come up with a horse pun. I was trying to come up with a horse pun that rhymed with neigh, and I couldn't think of one.
You could have just said nay, not true. I don't know.
Well, I could have, but that wouldn't have been funny either. I could have said, this is
anything.
I'm here for the main attraction.
Oh, that's a good time. Did you Google that?
No.
Oh.
But that would be hilarious if I just fucking Googled horse pun. Let me look up.
Do you remember that? Do you remember that time I found all my old like childhood homework and I sent you a picture of one of them?
Oh my god. I've never had such a delightful evening in my life. I missed that day. And was like, look what I found.
Do you remember when I showed you that thing? I don't know why I saved it. It has to be because of how ridiculous it was. But I colored in a pear, like it was the shape of a
Oh
pear.
yeah, yeah.
And apparently I had to name it because it has like a spot for me to have written something on its belly. And it was a pear with a smiley face. And it just says horse on it. And I don't and I guess I named it horse. I don't understand, but I love her.
Oh
and
my god. I want that
I
framed.
saved her.
I want that framed so bad.
Once I'm done treasuring it, I will send it to you framed. Oh, speaking of frames, I found this picture all over again. I found this picture all over again. It is my favorite picture of you and me, Christine. It makes me so happy every time.
I love that photo of us.
I also
so intoxicated.
It looks so blurry. It looks just like you. No.
It looks like me in a blur. Yes, it does. My dress is like falling off of my boobs. It's my wedding dresses.
It's my favorite picture of us.
I love that photo.
I'm gonna find a place to put it in our.
It's
in our
so
apartment.
cute.
Okay, back to Snippy the horse.
Okay, I won't stir up any more trouble. I googled that one.
Hang on. Did that work? Wait, what was the sound?
That was the sound. Oh, do 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 do.
Oh shit! No, I was trying to find the.
Womp.
Yeah.
I hope you. I hope you accidentally hit the clapping next.
Okay, I'm just gonna pick one. Hold on, pick a color. I have no idea which one is which.
Green. Oh man, that was the right one.
Okay, well, okay, so here we go. This is the first or one of the first cases of UFO connected livestock mutilation. Snippy is a 3-year-old, and I'm sorry if I'm saying this wrong, but I think I'm saying it right. Appaloosa, a 3-year-old Appaloosa, which
that
means that
right
she. Do you know what Appaloosa is?
Oh, it's a she. I don't.
She.
It sounds like Appalachia, but I don't know.
So Appaloosa is the type, the design of your horse.
The design.
I'm sure it's the breed, but
Eva knows. It's a. Oh my god, Eva literally says, "As a horse girl, I know it's a spotted horse." Whoa.
Yes. So she's got
Eva.
spots.
Holy shit.
I didn't know Eva was a horse girl.
I did.
That might have been before our time. Is she still a horse girl, Eva? Right?
No, former.
Former horse girl. Okay, that makes sense.
We talk about this stuff when you're asleep in the back seat, and
I know. When we're on tour and I wake up, the two of you seem much more bonded than you were before, and I'm like, I missed something
so
really intense.
Appaloosa has spots on its butt, and you're like, I'm going back to sleep now. I don't want to be part of this.
So Snippy is a 3-year-old Appaloosa mare, which means that she's a she. And she was born and raised in the San Luis Valley of Colorado on Harry King Ranch.
Okay.
And this is in the 1960s. And it's in the town of Alamosa, which that threw me for a second because I was like, she's an Appaloosa that lives in Alamosa. And I was like, that could be a real interesting children's song.
Seriously, at least Alamosa is not an Appalachia, because then we'd be in big trouble.
If the song were an Appaloosa in Alamosa, not Appalachia, that would be real crazy.
That'd be the world's worst song, but okay.
Someone with music writing experience, please create that song. Thank you. So in Alamosa, the population is just a small town, like 6,000 people. And then the rest of it is much more rural. And just to step aside really quick and give you a very vague, very, very quick summary of Colorado's history with UFOs, is that from 1947 to 69, the government investigated over 12,000 UFO/alien encounters for Project Blue Book, which I have not covered yet, but we will eventually. That's the government project that was studying UFOs during that time. And in the 60s specifically, the government was trying to decide if Project Blue Book was worth continuing. Okay. So the Air Force commissioned an astrophysics professor named Edward Condon to investigate UFOs and extraterrestrials, to I guess join the force or something. And his findings, he became known for writing this thing called the Condon Report, which was,
I feel like I've heard his name before, so that makes sense.
I would like to also eventually cover him, but this is why it's too overwhelming to cover right away, is because the Condon report is over 15,000 pages long.
Oh my, pages? Oh Christ.
Pages,
Okay.
not even words. I know.
Jeez.
It was written collectively by 37 scientists.
Oh my God.
And it was called, instead, it wasn't called the Condon report, it just became that. Its official name is Scientific Studies of UFOs.
Okay.
And so he wrote this after the government had him join on in the 60s. And ultimately, he decided, after 15,000 pages of writing, he decided that there is really no reason for the government to continue any UFO investigations.
It took him 15,000 pages to decide that?
I know.
Oh my God.
I know.
That's exhausting.
Also, I guess even though he was trying to say, like, oh, UFOs aren't worth looking for, this was in like the 60s, right after the 50s, which is when like UFO craze was a thing.
Oh,
so
fair point.
So you can say it's not really worth your time, but it's already in the zeitgeist. It's too late. And of when Project Blue Book was doing all their studies, when they studied like 12,000 different ET cases, just to give you an idea of what they came to understand about UFOs, or what they released, not to sound like a conspiracy theorist here, but from what they're willing to publicly say out loud, is that out of 12,000 reports, only 700 of them are still unsolved, which means they solved 94% of their cases.
Okay. Bullshit. I call bullshit.
That's what I think.
I'm saying this so diplomatically, like, allegedly they're like, boo, liars.
Well, then you said it, and then I kicked the door open, and I was like, yeah, like, me too. I was like, I just wanted to hear you say it first.
We needed one other person on our team. Yeah.
So that makes it feel a little less overwhelming if I wanted to cover Project Blue Book, because then I only have to care about 6% or 700 cases. But, and I get that I do get a lot of them could easily be debunked with something, or natural causes, or a weather balloon, or whatever. But I feel like there's no way only 6%. I feel like now that the government has straight up said aliens are real, or whatever that announcement was a while ago, I feel like we should look back at Project Blue Book and maybe, like, you know, just do one more glance over the cases. Yeah.
But I feel like that's still a lot. Like, however,
it's still 700 unsolved cases.
Exactly. So maybe that is it, but like, that's still a lot, in my opinion. Like, even if one of those cases were unsolved or were a mystery, that still counts, right? Like, I know Jim Harold says this all the time, but even if one ghost story out there is true,
yeah,
then it's real. Like, you don't need to prove that they're all real, you know?
I love Jim Harold.
Me too.
that immediately made it so much more comforting. And not really, because it's like, oh, aliens must be real. Anyway, so the Condon report, if you live near Colorado University, they own the Condon report, and it is now in their rare and distinctive collections. Which
cool.
I so badly want to go look at it.
Me too.
So badly. And I will say this, despite Condon claiming that the UFOs weren't anything to worry about, this was in 1969, 2 years before, there were so many reports in this area of Colorado where Snippy the horse happened. There were so many reports in the San Luis Valley that one paper in the area actually said that they were being, quote, downright plagued with UFOs.
Oh my God.
But then 2 years later,
Colorado.
But then 2 years later, he comes up with this like famous report that says UFOs aren't really all that important. But it sounds like all 6% of true stories happened in San Luis Valley, Colorado.
Yeah,
so.
Poor Snippy is getting like no respect here.
Yeah, like put some dignity on her name, you know?
She's been through a lot.
She has, and you're about to hear how much she went through.
Oh,
so before we get into it, I just want to say, I just kind of touched on it, but Snippy was not the first story in this area. They really were, quote, plagued by UFOs. It seems like everyone had a story. There's a story of one student who saw a strange figure in the field, and when they drove toward it, both of their rear tires blew out at the same time. There were people who were seeing black triangular objects flying in the sky. There were multiple people who were being followed by objects for miles that were flying around above them. There's also one story of 2 deputies who are being followed by an orange globe, but that they didn't report it because they were afraid of losing their jobs. So that's also another thing about Project Blue Book, is how many of them weren't reported.
Great point. Great point.
Just saying. Another story is that there was this well-respected judge in town named Charles Bennett, and he and his wife reported a UFO sighting. They said that they saw 3 red-orange circles, similar to an orange globe. 3 red-orange circles flying over them at high speeds, and they could hear the machines humming, and the machines above them formed into a triangle together.
Ooh, so we got a globe and a triangle.
Yeah, and soon maybe a rhombus.
Oh no, you say it ain't so.
So on the same night where this well-respected judge in town swears that he saw a UFO, on that same night, Snippy the horse met her fate.
Oh my god, it was perfect. It was perfect. I talked right over it, but it was perfect.
So, Snippy, aka Lady, not actually Snippy, Lady. She belonged to a woman named Nellie, and Nellie was the sister of Harry King of Harry King Ranch, which is where she lived. Snippy lived.
Got it.
So Harry King had a ranch with his mom, and he looked after his sister's horse there, and the horse was Lady. So Snippy, there was one note that I found where someone described Snippy, and it felt like the closest thing I'll ever come to being my version of, this girl is known to have walked into a room and lit up a room and
lit up the room with her smile and stuff.
So Snippy lit up the room with her smile.
Honey.
She was known as a creature of habit because she would go out to pasture every day, but she was very timely and would always come back right around food time.
Honey.
And she loved her food and she loved attention. It sounds a lot like me.
This is starting to sound a little familiar.
Snippy also had tarantula legs. Hang on. Nope. Wait, that's me. So
I thought you were going to say Tourette's. I was like, that's also you. I was like, which one are we going with? Tarantula legs. Got it. Oh, these mixers are too powerful.
I only know what those 2 things do. I'm scared to touch anything else.
You remember, because I immediately forget when I press one of the buttons what it does. Oh god, that's good.
If Snippy had Tourette's, I would feel closer to Snippy. I'm just saying.
Agreed.
Or tarantula legs. I would feel seen either way.
I feel like she's probably got those big hindquarters, so maybe
she's got those gams,
She's got the gams, that's for sure.
So when she didn't show up one night, because she was usually very timely about coming in for her food, this is when Harry King of Harry King Ranch got very worried.
Oh no.
He went looking for her, and unfortunately, he found her 2 days later in a field. And there's nothing there's nothing bloody gory, I'm about to say. It's more like anatomy based, in case that's helpful for somebody to figure out if they want to listen to the next couple minutes. But let's go. So basically it was Snippy lying down. Her entire body is fine except for neck up. Her head was just bone. There was no tissue, no skin, no muscle, no sign of anything except bone.
So it was just a skull.
Just a skull.
What the fuck?
And it was as if scavenger animals had picked it all away, but it was even too clean for that.
And the rest of the body was there, right? With all the skin and stuff.
The rest of the body was there, completely untouched. Completely untouched.
What the fuck?
Plus, where the exposed bone began and where her skin ended around her neck. There was no signs of biting or tearing as if there were scavenger animals that came to pick at it.
Oh.
The flesh truly looked like it had been perfectly cut from the body with a tool.
What the fuck?
And it was so clean that no animal could have done it, and all of her bones were still in place, so it appeared, quote, meticulously cleaned without being jostled. So, like, none of the bones were out of place or anything.
Ooh, it just gave me goose cam.
Like, everything from the neck up just went away, except her bone.
It just, like, placed there perfectly without being scattered about. Oh.
So, Harry also looked around to... Yeah, I'm sure.
I would.
And he was looking for like any other signs of what went on. He realized that her hoof prints in the mud ended 100 feet or 100 yards from where she actually was.
Shut up.
And there's no other prints around her actual body, and it had been muddy. So if there were prints, they would have seen them.
What the fuck?
So it was almost as if she had been picked up at some point a while away and then placed here. Harry, obviously freaked out, calls his sister Nellie, who was the owner of Snippy, and had to tell her what happened. And so Nellie comes out with her husband. Her husband's name is Burl, which never heard that name before. What is Burl even?
Isn't that a name like Burl Ives? Isn't that a person? Burl Ives. Let's see. I'm sorry. His full name is Burl Eichel Ivanhoe. Wait, Burl Eichel Ivanhoe Ives was an American musician and actor.
What?
You don't know Burl Ives? He did like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, like the original one.
Oh,
and,
okay. I do know
stuff like that.
I know his work.
Yeah, you familiar with his work? That's the only Burl I've ever heard of.
Is Burl short for something else?
This one just says Burl.
Well, something Earl isn't short for anything else.
That's true. I'll type in Burl name meaning.
Yeah.
A meaning naughty wood, knotty, not naughty, you know, but
knotty, not nagaughty.
Nagaughty, wood, tuft of wool, cupbearer or butler. Okay. A tuft of wool.
I like how both of us couldn't have harmonized better with the okay.
Okay. I mean, that doesn't really give me any sort of helpful
It taught me nothing. While we're at it, can you look up Earl? Because that's another name I'm a little like...
probably it means Earl, like in like the title.
Oh, you're right. I don't
like know.
Prince
Maybe
or Duke
Burl,
or whatever.
Maybe Burl's just meant to rhyme with Earl. Meaning nobleman, warrior, or prince.
Yeah.
So.
I wonder where Burl falls on the baby list these days, because
oh my God,
I feel like
Burl name popularity. Let's find out. Burl. Okay. Popularity number 26,692.
Oof, Burl.
That's
a rough one.
Wait, I want to send you the chart. There's a chart. Oh, it's like fucking crash. Looks like a stock market crash. Hold on. I'm sending
it just
you this.
Nosedived.
This is so sad for Burls out there. Any Burls out there? I'm sending this to you.
Also even worse, Christine. I feel like it's probably tanked even further because it's Burl spelt Berle.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I did not do it that way.
So can you look that one up? Berle.
It filled in Burl pants, so maybe that's a thing. It's a baby girl name, allegedly.
Oh, interesting.
So that one, I was gonna say that one's number 4,576, and then it says that data is from 1926.
Wow, it's gone. That's an extinct name.
And it says no data after that. Holy
interesting.
Shit. So now that one is not even remotely on the fucking board.
Oh, wow. Well, okay.
Gosh.
You know what? Maybe we just gave it the comeback it needed. The real kick in the pants.
I hope so, because like what? Oh, but also I wanted to mention that on this page it says, "Are you looking for a sibling name for Burl? Here's some great options: Belden, Belden, Bray, which Bray and Burl. It sounds like a horse. Sounds like a horse's.
Burl and Bray. Yeah.
I like Belden though. That's fun. It means pretty valley.
Oh,
anyway.
That's lovely.
Bevis? Gascon?
Are they just? Are these the Sims names? I feel like these.
It's like an AI was trying to write Simlish or something.
It feels like Xenon siblings have crash landed, and
it does really. Oh my god!
If your name is Gascon, I'm so sorry. Like that I'm making fun of it, not like I'm sorry for your name.
I'm sorry that we're being so rude, but you know, Bevis means handsome face in French. So,
oh, okay.
You know,
what does Gascon mean?
Gascon means a man from Gascony.
Well, that's 2 on the nose. Okay.
That's a little on the nose. It means nothing more than that. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well.
So, good. What
Moving
about
on
Gib?
quick. Okay. Gib? Please stop. I can't.
Marmion? These aren't names.
Someone make a Sims family with all of these names. I'm begging you. And make them all horses.
But then the dad has to be, what was his name again?
Burl.
No, our son. Or, I mean, our sim.
Oh, Kremet? Oh, wait, I don't know. Who are you talking about?
Remember our what who would talk in Simlish? And he would say,
Chauncey. Chauncey Bliss.
Chauncey Bliss. What is the name Chauncey? That's a good name.
I could totally hear Chauncey Bliss going, Gascon, Burl.
Gascon, Burl. It's time for it's time for your breakfast of oats and barley.
Wow.
Eat your barley, Burl.
I'm gonna be ill. My stomach is starting to hurt. Have we stretched this out long enough? Is everybody
this is the stupidest show?
Does everybody want us to keep going? Okay.
Is anybody here? Probably not.
If you recall, about 8 years ago, we were talking about Nellie and Burl.
Oh yeah.
So Harry calls his sister Nellie, and she brings her husband from The Sims, apparently named Burl, and tells them the very unfortunate news of what happened to their horse. So they end up going over to Harry's ranch to see what happened themselves. And they noticed, all 3 of them noticed, that Snippy's skull was so white and bleached that it didn't look like it was only 2 days ago that the skull was exposed to sun. It looked like it had been exposed directly to sunlight for years.
But just the head. That is so weird.
It's also weird because I guess in the world of like potential UFO abductions, it's like they've used some sort of technology that suggests sun exposure or UV exposure that we aren't used to. They also noticed that the skull had a bit of a pink tint to it, which I have no idea what that means.
That's weird.
When looking at the field itself that Snippy was in, they also found 15 different circular scorch marks. And they were later described as similar to aircraft exhaust marks.
I was going to say, so they're like landing marks. Oh, yuck.
Mm-hmm. They also found, speaking of a UFO landing, they also found in the fields near these scorch marks 6 odd indents in the ground that made a 3-foot circle. So almost as if a UFO, like a 3-foot UFO landed, and its 6 little legs landed into the ground.
Ooh, okay.
They also realized that there was a 10-foot radius of bushes that had all somehow become flattened.
Ugh.
As if, I guess, like the UFO landed there.
Yeah.
They also, okay, so they went to go look at these bushes because they're like, why is 10 feet of bushes all completely flattened?
Yeah.
Nellie goes to look at these bushes and finds on the leaves a bunch of jelly substance.
What? Ectoplasm?
It was green, but she went to touch it and it burned her hands that she apparently like let go of it really quickly, and her hand continued to burn until she washed it.
Ew, that makes you wonder like what it could have been doing to her. Yeah.
And also like I love that our soap on this planet is good enough to get rid of that situation.
Great point too. I was going to say that's a great point because like my fear would be it would never leave my body or it would poison me forever, but it seems like Dawn did a number on that.
And I was going to say, in the world of 2023 social media, if this story came out today, people would be asking which soap she used. And then that soap would fully make it into like a media campaign of like, we can take care of alien splotches,
Okay, but speaking of Dawn, like, remember when the fucking oil spill and they were like, the only soap used to clean ducklings? And I'm like, oh my God, Lord. And all the bottles have the animals on them.
To this day,
would be all over that shit. Yes.
Can you imagine instead like Dove extra care or Dove lotion just has a picture of Xenon on it because like it gets rid of all of her
with
oil
like
spills.
A big circle and like a line through it, like no more.
So she touched this jelly. She like threw it back on the ground when it started to burn. She washed her hands. She also though found a piece of metal in these bushes that had horsehair on it.
Oh, what?
So I guess the UFO thought is maybe this is like scrap metal from the UFO, and the horse had in fact been on the in the craft.
They tried to like shove it into the craft. And
and it didn't work or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
So they reported the horse's death to the police, but the sheriff declared Snippy's cause of death to be lightning.
What?
He declared this even though there were no storms in the area, and he hadn't even looked at the body.
What a lunatic.
He just said, oh, your horse is completely missing everything from the neck up, and there's jelly-like substances and scorch marks everywhere. Lightning.
What are you hiding, sir?
Yeah, either he's an idiot, or I don't think he cares. I think he's like, oh, that's a dead horse. Who cares?
Yeah, rude. Fucking rude.
Days later, a man named Dr. Altschuler, he was like an award-winning pathologist. This part of the story feels fake. Not that in like a funny way, just like it truly logically, I don't totally understand. I feel like I'm missing a chapter here. But a man named Dr. Altschuler, he was caught trespassing in a national park, and the cops asked him what he was doing there. He said he was looking for UFOs. They said they were going to take him in for trespassing, and he said, please don't, this will affect my reputation as an award-winning pathologist. Okay.
Okay.
Sure. Weird reason. And the police said, fine, we'll let you go, but only if you help us look into this UFO case in Colorado.
Oh, okay.
This feels like the beginning of like a Disney movie where it doesn't totally have to connect entirely. They're just like giving you the beats.
Believe it. Yeah, you just like suspend your disbelief. It's almost like my favorite movie, Catch Me If You Can, where they're like, okay, the only way you don't go to prison is if you help the FBI.
Yes.
Like now you're on the task force.
Yes, exactly. And even that, I know that was based on a true story, or maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I've heard there's controversy around that now.
There's definitely. Interesting. I've meant to cover that since like the day we started the podcast. I still haven't done it. So.
Well, I'm glad you haven't, because apparently the new plot twist in recent years is that a la Catch Me If You Can, he even made that whole story up for the movie. So.
What? I'm like, I don't even know if that's more or less impressive that we all fell for it or what. I don't know.
Like, it was like that one detective wasn't enough. I have to fool everyone. I don't know.
Leo ended up portraying him. He did something right.
Yeah, I don't know what the whole story is there, but I've heard that there was.
I had no idea.
I would love for you to cover it so you can tell me, because I really don't know what's true and what's not. So
I would love to.
So yeah, a la Catch Me If You Can, this guy apparently is now in with the cops on helping with an alien case.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Which, like, I love that his dream was to find a UFO, and then he stumbled upon cops who were like, here's a UFO.
He just happened to, stumble upon one. I mean, that must be nice.
Can you imagine you're just looking for Bigfoot, and then the people who find you have a direct connection for you to help with Bigfoot?
They're like,
how does that work?
Only get to remove this shoplifting charge if you help us look for Bigfoot. Okay, yeah, sure. That's what I was planning on like anyway.
It's like a lifetime quality in storytelling.
Yeah, it
like
really is.
Movie.
There's a few gaps. You have to kind of squint your eyes for it to make sense.
Yeah, it's easier to just accept what's happening before you. Yeah. So he goes to help out again. award-winning pathologist, so maybe he was useful on this kind of case.
Well, with the goop and stuff, like I feel like a pathologist needs to analyze that.
He also was apparently known for his history with blood coagulation.
Ooh.
So I guess they were like, okay, well, there's a dead animal if you want to look at that blood. So he goes to see Snippy, and he realizes that Snippy's abdominal organs, lungs, and thyroid are missing.
What? Poor Snippy.
Nobody noticed the incisions that would have been needed to remove the organs because they were so precisely done that they got ignored the first time around.
That's terrifying.
So not only neck up is everything missing, but apparently, like, neck down, there are other things missing that were just so perfectly handled that, like, no one even picked up on.
That's creepy. That has like vibes of those like urban legends or whatever, when you get kidnapped and you wake up and like your back kind of aches because they took your spleen out or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, ugh, it's so creepy.
He also realized that there was no blood.
Oh.
So here's a quote. I have done hundreds of autopsies. You can't cut into a body without getting some blood, but there was no blood on the skin or on the ground, no blood anywhere. The outer edges of the skin were cut firm, almost as if they had been cauterized by a modern-day laser, but there was no cauterizing laser technology like that in 1967.
Oh, so he's looking back on it and saying, now I can almost see what that would have been. Oh, that's even creepier.
So there was advanced technology we weren't privy to at the time.
Ooh, I just got goosebumps like into my hair.
So that's a new place.
Ooh, yeah, yikes.
The U.S. Forest Service even came out and did radiation tests on the fields, and they said that the area that Snippy was found in, especially the scorch marks and the metal piece that they found, and all of Harry, Nellie, and Burl's boots, because they'd been walking on the fields, all tested positive for being radioactive.
Uh-oh.
News began to spread of Lady's death, and she was accidentally renamed Snippy, because her name got confused with the name of one of her parents. So
she didn't even get the proper name. Okay. Sad.
Yeah. So Snippy's actually one of her parents' names. Someone else, I saw another source that said like it was because like someone had snipped into her to get her organs.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, that's by the way, speaking of horse puns, they fucking ate up using the word Snippy on the headlines when the story was big. They kept saying like
snipped open.
Town is still snippy about no answers.
That's so stupid. Oh my God. It's even worse than I thought.
So so basically one of the people that heard about Snippy once the news started spreading was Edward Condon of the Condon Report. And he was in the middle of writing the Condon Report at this time.
So he decided 7,500?
Yeah, he'd only discovered 11,000 of the cases were unsolved. Okay. He decided he wanted to add Snippy to his report, and to do that, he sent his own doctors to go look at Snippy, and he sent over Dr. Adams, who determined that no unearthly causes were responsible, so couldn't be a UFO. I feel like as a staunch believer who desperately wants all of Project Blue Book to just say out loud that there are aliens.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like Edward Condon has become like my arch nemesis because it seems like every time he touches a case, he determines that it's like not a UFO.
I want to smack the back of his head. Like, what are you trying to prove here, sir?
Give me what I want. And like,
give me something, anything.
And maybe scientifically he's right, but like, I don't want him to be. So
but like, he's probably not. And I think we can both agree about that.
I think, especially if he's literally been hired by like the Air Force and Project Blue Book, you don't think he's just doing PR for them? Like, you don't think they're just giving him so much money he'll never have to work another day in his life?
Motive.
They're just telling him what to say. And who's Dr. Adams, really? You know,
Dr. Adams. Come on, I could come up with a better fake name than that. How about Dr. Schmadams?
Dr. Burl Bevis Gascon.
Burl, Dr. Burl. Yeah.
So anyway, they
Anyway.
shit, hang up. Anyway, I was like really not having that. So yeah, Edward Condon says that this is probably not connected to UFOs. I choose not to believe him, but okay.
Yeah.
And ultimately the general consensus is that Harry, Nellie, and Burl all had to be lying about what happened just because nothing else made sense. Even though all these people, there are pictures online of Snippy the horse's body, and you can like see that like the skull alone. So like something fucking happened.
And like, how do you say it was definitely not something unearthly? Because like, how do you even, that seems like a negative, like how do you prove that? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It doesn't even make sense to make that a theory.
We should start our own investigation team, and the answer every time is aliens. You know?
I mean, I think that already exists, and it's that guy with the hair.
I think it's also
aliens?
Called it's also called And That's Why We Drink, where every story I cover must be an alien.
I was gonna say, also, I think we've tried to start a task force like every episode we've ever done. So
I know. One day. So
One day.
They ended up, when everyone was, I guess, said and done with this, or the story was getting kind of stale, and they were like, okay, well, we can't figure it out, and you could have made this up for, I don't know, publicity. They ended up moving Snippy's body to a veterinarian named Dr. Leary. Dr. Leary, I didn't know this is something that you do. Apparently, he boiled her bones and re-articulated them to like build out essentially a skeleton of, like a display skeleton of her.
Okay.
Like taxidermy without everything but bones.
Right.
Like where you
So
like
put up,
wire the bones together and all that.
Right, like at a dinosaur exhibit or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So they did that. And during this, he ended up finding out that there were actually 2 bullet marks in her bones that hadn't been discovered at first. So this is his theory. He says, I'm saying it's just a theory, but a couple of kids could have hit her with a couple of 22 slugs. Then the horse got scared, took off at a high lope, and runs through a fence, and basically did
Poor baby.
cookie clothesline situation.
Jeez.
I've seen it before. I'm so sorry for the sentence. I've seen it before. That fence wire can clean an animal like a knife slicing cheese.
Oh my god, that is so
Which like
fucked
no
up.
No need for the flowery words
seriously,
there.
That's so dark. Jesus Christ.
So basically he thinks that the horse got spooked and ran off and accidentally... Like, it'd be one thing if, like, he thought with a thin fencing wire like that, maybe the horse decapitated itself. But, like, to perfectly get 360 degrees of all of its skin, even in between the bones, does not make sense.
It doesn't really, and, like, also... for them to be bleached and also for it to be such a clean line around the neck doesn't make sense.
Without bleeding?
Yeah, that's true too.
Like what? Like perfectly cauterized? Like from what?
Yeah.
And then also like wouldn't flesh be everywhere?
You'd think there'd be blood or hair on the fence or flesh. Yeah. Ugh. The skin would have had come off.
If you skinned your arm, wouldn't the skin have to be on the ground somewhere?
Yeah.
I guess an animal could have taken it or something.
I guess an animal. Yeah, that's true.
But, and also why were her hoof prints that far away? Like,
great point.
You know, it just doesn't make sense. But his big theory is, oh, the horse did this to itself. Okay.
Well, okay, to be fair, the kids did it first if they shot him.
Right.
Shot her, the horse.
So, interestingly, 2 college students later did admit to shooting Snippy. This is in very, very few sources. It wasn't everywhere, but some think that it could have just been like maybe it wasn't them, and maybe they just heard about it and then admitted to it because they wanted to be in on like the fame narrative, like they just wanted to be part of the story. And because even if they shot her, like, explain the rest of her body. Like,
yeah, true.
All they did was admit to, like, maybe shooting her, which, like, we don't even know if that's true. But they never said, like, oh, yeah, I went out with a scalpel in the middle of the night and removed every part of her head. Like, that's not right. So, anyway, there's one guy who had, he was a biochemist that I guess came out and looked at Snippy, who was very anti-UFO. He said, Are we to believe that creatures from outer space with the ability to travel 100 light years would do so only to attack a pony? It's like, okay, I guess
First of all, fucking relax, and also like
Also,
stop
pony
fucking
felt
dismissing her.
condescending.
Like that's exactly what I was gonna say. Like again, like Em said earlier, put some fucking respect and dignity on her name. All right, she's a horse, and you are acting like she's just trolloping around and is worth nothing to some aliens. But maybe she's really special, and maybe the aliens were studying some. Who the fuck knows?
You know what the best part,
guy?
You know what the best part of this biochemist? He's gonna be the wildest thing we talk about today, because so he, again, it felt very patronizing when he said pony instead of horse. It was like you wanted her to feel small. That was
like dismissive.
Uncool.
Yeah.
On top of that, would you like to know what his story is? A biochemist. Would you like to know what his fucking story is? This guy would have been in QAnon.
Oh God, absolutely. Tell me.
He very anti-UFO, but also very anti-government, it seems. Essentially, his theory boils down to this. The government has not been telling us, but has deposited radioactive waste throughout the state of Colorado. There's just radioactive waste falling everywhere.
Sure.
This led to colonies of radioactive ants because they were eating
what?
Because they were eating the waste, the radioactive waste that was falling everywhere.
What the fuck?
So now the ants are becoming radioactive. Snippy at some point got sick on a field, and on this field must have been one of the colonies of radioactive ants. Snippy is so sick that she falls into the bushes, apparently in a perfect 10-foot circular radius, and flattened every bush.
In a circle. Right. Okay.
And also, like, I don't know, rubbed jelly all over these bushes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then after falling into the bushes, eventually faints in the pasture, which is where the radioactive ants come after Snippy and eat only Snippy's face off perfectly and nothing else. That's his thought. But like, aliens is crazy.
I was gonna say, wow. He should have kept his mouth shut, because I feel like everyone would have believed him if he just said no aliens. But then the second part, everyone's like, "You lost me, bud. You lost me." At the
like,
ants.
I like to think that, like, an investigative journalist took him to like a pub after work, and he really just started like drunk spewing theories, and this is what the journalist got.
And they were like, "Oh, now we've got gold.
This is a hook." No,
this is a real hook.
But yeah, I was like, okay, radioactive ants, that's something that like my Virginia family would still probably believe. They probably think that radioactive ants... It
sounds like a Facebook troll like post that went viral, but from The Onion or something.
Like, and also, okay, so let's pretend that happened. What happened to these radioactive ants? Where the hell did they go? Like, they were there in the 60s and then they ate one horse face and they're all gone? What happened? Like, what's that?
Great point. Maybe the aliens came down 100 light years to examine the ants.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And now they're all gone.
Another theory I found on like some like weird blog forum was that what if the oh my god, what was it? I didn't keep it because I was like, that's just not right. But they were like, what if the horse actually was an alien that died on the ship and they just like turned it into a horse to like fit into the scene? Like, what if it was just an alien that they found that was like, and I was like, what? The theories are endless. Like, it could be radioactive ants. It could be like, why would, anyway, we can't even get into it. And then
what happened to Lady? If that wasn't Lady, then who was? Was Lady an alien the whole time? Oh my god, this is giving me a headache.
Anyway, so there has in recent years, because I guess people did note that the field was radioactive. Apparently that's where the ants hung out too. So there has in recent years actually been problems in Jefferson County, Colorado, with elevated levels of plutonium in their soil, to a point where the county is actually looking to like maybe this is a lawsuit kind of situation. But it was years ago. It was near an old nuclear plant. Jefferson County is 3.5 hours away from Alamosa, and they have done a lot to try to clean up the area. So, and also that was in 2019, not 1967. So yeah, it's a moot point in terms of this topic.
And it doesn't. The ants are still not explained. So
yeah, and they never found radioactive ants in actually
Like what-
radioactive soil.
exactly. Like, what are you talking about?
Another quick theory is that in the late 60s, this was near satanic panic. So maybe they thought Snippy was part of an animal sacrifice, but there's no evidence of that. Although it makes the most sense currently, because at least like it would explain why it looked like a person operated on Snippy's head.
That's true. That is true. I feel like if back then, if I lived in that time period, I probably would have believed that. I think that
more
like,
than
for the time
radioactive
makes
ants.
sense. Yes, I think for the time that theory makes the most logical, quote unquote, sense.
Yeah. And to this day, it's still a mystery. Her death is considered the start of the livestock mutilation reports and the stigma around mutilation in UFO lore. Snippy's skeleton was moved from Dr. Leary's after he like rebuilt her. And it traveled around town. I guess like people like had a lease on her or something, and she just ended up moving around. So she was in a museum for a while. She was literally on the sidewalk outside of the Chamber of Commerce. Which can you imagine being a tourist and there's just like a horse skeleton outside?
Can you imagine being a child and being like, this horse was murdered by aliens? Anyway, onto the store. It's like, I'd be so traumatized.
Well, here's my favorite one. Apparently, I don't know how this guy got a hold of her, but this one guy named Carl Heflin had Snippy's body for 2 decades in his house. And he collected a lot of weird shit. Apparently out in his yard there were 2 boxcars, like full on railroad boxcars. One was filled with shower stalls and one was filled with doors.
Ew,
so
what?
He was they call him a collector. I'm feeling like there's some other weird tendencies going on there.
Yeah.
He just maybe couldn't let things go. I don't totally understand.
Quote unquote.
Yeah. So, of course he would have like a potential horse abductee skeleton also.
Right.
And when he died, his family was going through all of his doors and shower stalls, I guess, and they found the skeleton and they were like, I wonder how much this would be worth. I guess they knew it was Snippy, and they were like, I wonder how much Snippy would be worth. So they hired someone at an insurance office to sell it. And they literally just hired this one guy named Frank. And
imagine being Frank. You're like, hello, it's like 9:30 a.m. and they're like, we have a quick question for you.
Like, and also they hired him to just put it on eBay, like, which is like the most like boomer thing I can imagine.
It was
it's like,
literally
I don't know
on
how
eBay.
They paid him to put it on eBay when like you could have just done that yourself.
That's how he sold it. It wasn't. I thought it was going to be like he went through some channels, some back channels, but no, it was just eBay. Cool.
Well, I'm sure he was like, how the fuck do I sell a horse skeleton?
Yeah, seriously, why do you call him Frank?
Also, I think it was 2006. So I think this was like during eBay's like heyday.
Oh yeah.
So I think he was just like,
I
eBay,
know this
you gotta
great new service. It's called Craig's List, and he's gonna help us. I'm gonna call Craig, and he's gonna settle this fucking horse skeleton for me.
With the amount of stuff that's been sold on Craigslist, like that can't be the weirdest.
No, definitely not. I'm sure if you said like mauled by radioactive ants, people would be like, "Oh, cool, I'll bid on that."
Yeah, it's like that sounds right. So so also that means for a time while Frank was trying to sell it on eBay, it was just sitting in like an empty back room in an insurance office. So like imagine your first day at I don't know. I'm trying to think of an insurance group. Yeah, you just go into like the break room for a snack and there's a whole ass horse skeleton and you're like, what is this about?
If it was like Geico and you could be like, it's just one of our new advertising campaigns. You know how funny we are on the TV.
Yeah, or like Allstate with like the
mayhem guy.
Mayhem guy.
Yeah.
Is that? I don't know. Anyway.
State Farm? I have no idea.
something. Imagine Jake from State Farm and this horse, you know?
Jake from State Why do insurance companies have all these fucking gimmicks? I'm like realizing all of a sudden.
You know what? But we just gave 3 of them a lot of good time. So I hope they're happy.
What the fuck?
So Frank used eBay. He started the bid at 10 grand for this horse skeleton. Or I'm sorry, he started the bid at 50 grand.
What?
50 grand. I think because it was not only was it a pretty I imagine intact skeleton of a horse, but it also had like, you know, local history. It was potentially like the product of a UFO abduction. Like,
right.
If you're a massive
cryptid
fan, if you're Zach Bagans, like that's the thing you put in your cryptid museum, you know?
Yeah.
So the local paper announced like, hey, Snippy the horse, remember her from a few decades ago? She's on sale on fucking eBay.
Jesus.
And locals lost their mind. Everybody started writing in being like, no, like I knew Snippy. I'm part of the story. I'm part of the narrative. I deserve her. I actually, we're the ones that have the skeleton. That's a fake skeleton. Like all these stories started circling. One of them, her name was Sylvia Lobato, and she claimed that her mom was Nellie's best friend.
Okay.
And she was quoted saying, I remember that day in 1967 when Nellie called our house. My mother got off the phone and said, flying saucers killed Nellie's horse. Wow. Can you imagine just looking at your...
my God.
Can you imagine looking at your child and being like, guess what the fuck just happened?
You'll
flying
never
saucers
believe
killed
this.
Nellie's horse.
You'll never believe what I just heard.
That girl has to officially have full trauma because as a child she was told, oh, flying saucers kill. And also
then
cute little animals
she goes,
that you know.
She sees that fucking skeleton on the sidewalk. She can't escape it. It's like in everyone's house. It's like at the bank.
She claims she also saw the horse right after the flying saucers came and killed it. She says from the neck up, that horse was peeled. It was just pure. It was just pure white bones. The horse had only been dead for a night, but it looked like it had been dead for months. Nellie was there with us, and she found a piece of metal next to the horse. It was covered in horsehair. When she picked it up, it burned her, and she screamed and dropped it. Her hand was badly burned. I was there, and I saw it. Which, like, she didn't say anything, though, like, you couldn't have gotten from the papers at the time. So, like, we don't know, but... Also, relatives of Nellie, after Nellie had passed, those relatives were saying they had grown up hearing the stories and they actually owned the skeleton, or they knew where the skeleton had been moved, or they deserved to now own the skeleton. The Chamber of Commerce said that they at one point owned the skeleton, I guess when it sat on the sidewalk. And then they tried to start a Save Snippy fund to get the horse back. So even though Frank put it on eBay for 50 grand. It only went for 10 grand. And I guess the heir to the one that hired Frank to help them out, he was like, 10 grand isn't enough. Like, let's take the post down. I don't even want 10 grand for it. So they ended up just like getting rid of the auction and they just moved Snippy to a warehouse.
What the fuck?
As of last year, Snippy's body is now in Cooper, Colorado at the UFO Watchtower, which I think you and I need to go to eventually.
I was going to say, I'm sorry, the what now?
The UFO Watchtower is a watchtower, a full 360-degree view of the valley. And it's on like the Cosmic Highway. It's like a highway where everyone claims to see UFOs. But you can get a view of the Cosmic Highway. You can get a view of the whole area. And apparently Snippy's body is now also there. But anyway, even without solid answers, Snippy's death is one of the thousands of solved incidents in the Condon report. So even though there's 700 unsolved,
really?
She is apparently one of the 12,000, which keeps me stressed out about the Condon report because I don't believe it, because they said that I guess the solving was that Nellie lied and all this was fake.
Well, I could solve every crime ever by saying that. I mean, that doesn't mean anything.
Again, if it was like truly like a weather vane or like something like that could prove if there was evidence, but now I feel like all 12,000 reports are like, I didn't want to do the work, they're lying. Yeah.
How are we supposed to believe any of that? It was radioactive ants, really? Like, come on.
Exactly. Anyway, that is Snippy the horse.
AKA Lady the horse.
AKA Lady the horse.
Poor
and her radioactive
lady.
friends.
Poor baby. I am shook by that story. I feel like we should post a picture of one of like the headlines that you were talking about.
Yeah. Oh, you can find a lot of them.
Yeah. Okay. We should look those up and post one.
I'm looking up horse puns to close out my section.
Oh, okay. I have a list from earlier.
Oh, okay. Do you have any good ones?
The only one that I liked the best was my stirrup joke. Stir up some trouble.
How about
the rest.
This story will have a cult following.
Oh, I saw that one too. Yeah.
Okay. Well, get off your high horse.
Okay, that was good.
And just like that, we're done with Snippy.
Man, speaking of spur of the moment, No, that doesn't work. Okay.
Oh, that worked. Spur, cowboy. I don't know.
Sort of, but it didn't make sense in the context of our conversation.
I'm sorry.
Okay, all right. Just because I'm not plugged into my mixer today, I can't fucking make any sound effects for your dumb jokes. Oh, Lord. Okay, let me pull up my story because I swear this might be one of my favorite stories I've covered today. And I don't want to say favorite again. I mean, we all know what I mean, right? Like it's
yes,
obviously fucked up, but it's like one of the most, I think, interesting and bizarre cases. And unlike 12,000 of Mr. Condon's cases, this one is unsolved and remains unsolved.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so let me pull it up. It is called the Hall Mills murder. And the way that this has been described online is sort of like the most sensational case of the time that you've never heard of today. Like,
oh my God.
Like somebody described it as almost like pretty much as equivalent sensation-wise as the O.J. Simpson case in the 90s. Like that's how
holy shit
wild this media circus got about this.
So what else was going on during this time for us to not even recall it quickly? Like what was the time period for this?
1922, I believe was the year. And I don't know because to be honest, like I feel like there are some cases from, well, I guess a lot of them have kind of just faded away over time.
I wonder if they faded away or like the Great Depression and a bunch of World War happened.
That's
so maybe
true.
they're like,
yeah,
we got
like it was
stuff going
prohibition. Like there was just a lot of shit happening. So maybe that is what it is. Like maybe over time it just got lost in the shuffle of all the other bullshit going on. But I'm here to revive the tale. So
on its 101st birthday.
Yes, that's right. It's over 100 years old now. That is very true. So Edward Wheeler Hall is our first character. He was born in 1881. And by the way, there are some, a web of relations. So you might need your gargoyles if that makes sense.
I got my gargs.
Great. So Edward Wheeler Hall, he was born in 1881 and grew up in a middle-class family in Brooklyn, New York. He met his wife in 1911, and her name was Frances Noel Stevens. And she, sorry. My mom just texted me a picture of a vacuum cleaner. Okay, my bad. Let me get back to this.
That sucks.
I have my work, my do not disturb set so that my mom's texts come through because she's usually watching Leona while I record. And then sometimes she just sends me a picture of a vacuum and I'm like, this is not why I took you off my do not disturb list. Okay.
I tried to make a vacuum pun, but it did not land.
That sucks.
Yes, yeah. Well,
is that what you said?
Yeah.
Oh shit! I thought I was making the pun about your joke sucking, but you.
Well, it obviously wasn't very good if we both thought the same thing immediately. So
that's so. I'm sad I missed it. I bet you I'm gonna get tweets about that. Okay. So he married his wife Frances Noel Stevens in 1911, and he studied theology in New York City. The year is 1922 now. We're fast forwarding. He is 41 years old, Edward Hall, and he is living with his wife Frances in New Brunswick, where he worked as an Episcopal reverend at St. John the Evangelist Episcopal Church.
Oof.
So he's married to Frances and he's working as a reverend. Some people thought his marriage to Frances was just a marriage of convenience, because when he was 28 years old, he had actually been courting a woman his age, but then ended up proposing to Frances, who was 7 years older than him.
Ooh.
And she was extremely wealthy because she was part of the Johnson & Johnson family.
Oh my God.
So
okay,
she had their privilege and wealth behind her. So some people basically speculated that he married her for the money and for the lifestyle. And It was also described in newspapers at the time, because this is what people talked about when they discussed women, that she was a homely woman and didn't look like she came from money. So very
Frumpty Dumpty is what
rude.
it sounds like.
Yeah, that's
It's
what they were
awful.
implying, that like, why else would he marry her? Like, it's just nasty stuff.
Imagine being famous enough that your name is in papers and that's all people say about you.
And they're
I
like,
just
why
can't even
else would
imagine.
anyone marry you? It's like, Jesus Christ, what a low blow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really, really rude. However, now that he has married Frances, he's this widely respected reverend. He has financial power. He's a pillar of the community, so to speak. And regardless of why they married, he and Frances seem happy enough together. So life goes on. Now we introduce the next character of our story. Her name is Eleanor Mills, maiden name Reinhardt. She had been born in 1887 and had grown up in New Brunswick. Her father was a factory laborer, and that she was one of 10 children. So she came from a lower class background, I guess, if you are comparing the Johnson & Johnson fortune and this
with anyone else.
Woman. with literally anyone, but especially someone who grew up in such a blue collar family with so many kids.
Sure.
So Eleanor, unlike Frances, was described as a great beauty. She was a talented singer, and many people admired her voice. She made her own clothes, which were said to always fall and look really beautiful on her, and she loved to read. She said reading made her dream. She loved to study and learn. She even gave speeches about topics she read about to the people around her. And she also spoke German because that was her family's native language. So all around, she was a very interesting person, a beautiful person, and a very charming person. So a lot of people admired her. When she was 15, she met a man named Jim Mills, who was 24. And descriptions of Jim are slightly less flattering than those of Eleanor. His brother said they used to call him Simple Jim when they were kids.
Ooh.
And he was described also as, quote, colorless as a catfish, dim and meek.
Okay.
Just rude.
So, interesting.
Just rude.
Okay.
But Eleanor liked him, and they started dating. And even though he was 9 years older than her, she dropped out of school her senior year once she turned 18, and the two of them got married in 1905. What people didn't know is that she was secretly pregnant with their first child already. So they got married privately without telling any family, had their daughter, and then a few years later, Eleanor gave birth to their second child, a son. Now here is where our two families collide.
Okay.
Jim worked as a janitor at St. John the Evangelist Episcopal Church.
Okay. Got it.
He was the maintenance man and caretaker at the church where our other main character, Edward, was the reverend.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So they were a family of 4. They had these 2 kids. Eleanor also worked as a cleaner, and she sang in the choir at the church. And together, the two of them had very little money to support their family, but they did their best. And unfortunately, in addition to their money troubles, they were also extremely unhappy in their marriage. According to friends and Eleanor's own children, Eleanor was a devoted homemaker. She made her family's clothes. She even made like home decor on a shoestring budget just to make sure that they were always in a festive and happy environment. She cooked all day. She was very good at it. People loved the German food she cooked, but she and Jim just never got along. He would get irritated with her when she would use her money occasionally to buy things like a new chair for the apartment or something to make the house a little nicer. And they never physically fought, but they'd get in these massive yelling matches, and their neighbors often overheard their like verbal altercations back and forth.
And this is a few years down the road because, I mean, they got married, right? So they were happy at one point.
They did. So they got married in 1905, and so now we're in 1922.
22?
So
okay.
Yeah, so their kids are like preteen, teenage years at this point, and they've been married for a while. And, you know, she was 15 when they started dating, so you know,
Oof, okay.
it's been a long time, and it's been like the only person she's been with.
Got it. Okay. I wanted to make sure they were in love at some point. Okay. Got it.
I think so, or at least she got pregnant and they got married.
Or at least she was 15 and he was a grown-ass man. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, precisely. Another thing that seemed to really bother Jim, which I can understand why this would bother you. I'm not shaming her for it, but I'm just saying I kind of get why this would irk the other person, is whenever they would argue, she would cover her ears and start singing.
I would lose my mind simply.
I know, right? I lose my ever-loving mind.
I truly... And she would do that, or he would do that?
She would do that.
Oh, I really wanted to be on her side, but that's a real red flag for me.
Mm-hmm. No, it's really annoying, but, you know, to be fair, I don't know what he was saying. Maybe he was just a fucking verbally abusive man, and she was like, fuck it, I'm done. Like, who knows? I don't know the details. I'm just saying, in my experience, if someone did that, I'd be like, is this a joke? Like, I just know
later when Allison and I have to talk about these mugs one more time, if Allison does that, I will absolutely scream.
I'm going to buy you 12 more mugs if that happens. Basically, everyone around them, like their neighbors who weren't really close to them or anything, but just heard them arguing all the time, everyone said they could not stand each other, besides the fact that they were married. So at some point, Eleanor and Jim kind of gave up on their relationship, but at this time, you didn't really get divorced. That wasn't really the norm. So instead, Eleanor moved bedrooms to share a room with their daughter, Charlotte, and Jim shared a room with their son, Daniel. So despite living in totally different social spheres, the Halls and Mills only lived a few blocks from each other. And of course, they both knew each other from church. There's Reverend Edward and his wife, the Johnson & Johnson heiress. And now there's Eleanor and Jim, who both clean at the church, and Eleanor sings in the choir. The Halls sometimes would hire Jim also for odd jobs outside of the church maintenance position. So they would like ask him to house sit while they went on trips, or they tried to help them financially, if that makes sense. Like they would hire him for odd jobs and try to support the family. They also arranged a church loan for Eleanor because she needed a kidney removed at one point. And so they like arranged the finances for that. So they took care of the family as best as they could. And Eleanor and Frances, the two wives, were also friends. And Frances would give Eleanor small gifts like vegetables from her mansion's gardens. She's like,
I'm sorry, you said these. Not only mansions, but you said garden plural. Gardens.
I didn't
from
even
the mansion's
think about
gardens.
That. She's like has to share a room with her daughter because she's in an unhappy marriage. And this woman's like, one of my many gardens grew eggplants this year. Here you go. Like, wow, so delightful.
Woe is her. She had just too many. She needed to give them away. So really, you're doing her a favor.
They're going to go bad anyway, you know?
Yeah.
And also, Eleanor could turn that into some beautiful German dish that she might share with the church.
That's true.
So, you know? She would also sometimes give her fabric because she liked to sew and make clothes. And in return, sometimes Eleanor would embroider pieces for Frances and the church. So they just had a friendly relationship. And over the years, Eleanor became one of the most influential parishioners at St. John because she was so involved with the community and with the choir. And many people started to think this lady's gone a little over the line, like she's a little too involved in the church and has too much power over the rest of the congregation. But the Reverend Edward always backed her up, so people didn't really have much room to do anything about it. Nobody knows when, but at some point, Edward and Eleanor start having an affair with a capital A. I think most of us probably saw that coming.
I sure did.
The gargoyles start crisscrossing and making out with each other. They kept... Just if you need a visual, everybody. They would keep diaries for each other, and they would write each other love letters. And in the meantime, Eleanor would spend hours working at the church every day just to be around Edward. So it was pretty obvious to most people that this was going on. Edward would even go to the Mills house, like sometimes several nights a week for dinner, like just to come over for dinner. So he was brazen enough that he would go and like sit at their dinner table.
That's wild.
With the husband. Yeah. So Kind of sadly, Charlotte, the daughter, said those years were the happiest she had ever seen her mother. And according to her, Eleanor was smiling more, singing more, and just seemed content with life for the first time that her daughter had ever seen. The couple tried their best to be secret about their relationship, but of course, as always, there were rumors among the congregation. There were rumors throughout town. People just kind of knew this was happening.
Sure. Well, also,
Now,
if you can see a complete behavior change, too, and you wonder what the
that's true.
common
True.
denominator is. Yeah.
Those rumors about Edward and Eleanor were confirmed when the two of them were found laying side by side under a crabapple tree, surrounded by their torn up love letters, and both had been shot in the head.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, simple Jim. What did you do?
So, on September 16th, 1922, 15-year-old Pearl Balmer and 23-year-old Ray Schneider found the bodies of Edward Halls and Eleanor Mills under a crabapple tree in New Brunswick, New Jersey. They were walking down a local lover's lane sort of place when they saw Hall and Mills under the tree from a distance, and they thought that they were sleeping, so they tried to walk by to find their own more private spot. But on their way back from their little makeout session or whatever they were doing, Pearl noticed that the couple was still lying in the exact same positions. And so she started to get worried, and she told Ray to go check it out. And when he went to go check it out, he realized that these two people were dead, and they had been dead for several days.
Can you imagine like the hindsight of realizing that you had been looking at dead people this whole time and didn't even...
And then you went for a makeout session, and then you came back. Oh, God.
Like, what? I mean, I know it's like, I know it was not like anything they could have controlled or they wouldn't have known. But like, I would lose sleep at night thinking about like, oh, I was just next to dead people this whole time and I was making out next to them and I had no idea.
It's disturbing. It's like that thing we talk about, like you walk by so many serial killers in a lifetime. It's like, oh,
it's like how many times was a dead body next to me and I didn't notice it?
Oh, it's so eerie.
Yeah.
So they realized this couple was dead. They rushed to a nearby house to use the phone and call the police. And Pearl and Ray told the police they had just been out looking for mushrooms because they didn't want like a scandal about their little romantic affair. Their tryst.
Well, also,
so Ray,
sorry, keep going.
No, you can go ahead.
I was gonna say, well, weren't they also 15 and 23? Is this just normal back then?
I was gonna say they were 15 and 23. Yeah, I didn't put that together until you just said that.
And then the couple you mentioned earlier was 15 and 24. Okay.
Yeah, that's a little weird. I don't think I realized that, but they, I guess, were self-aware enough to realize this could be a scandal, so they lied and said they were just out hunting for mushrooms on Lover's Lane, as you do. So,
yeah, I do that all the time.
Mistake. I know you do. See, Allison, I told you, Em's just out mushroom hunting. Don't worry about it. So, Ray led police back to the scene where he had found these bodies and showed them where Eleanor and Edward had been arranged carefully under a crabapple tree. Now, I'm going to paint this picture for you. It's pretty horrific. So, their feet were facing the tree and they were lying on their backs, roughly a foot apart. Their legs were both crossed right over left at the ankles. Edward's arm was positioned so that Eleanor's head was resting on his arm. And one of Eleanor's hands was positioned to rest on Edward's thigh. So it was almost as if they were just like two lovers lounging in the sun. Like
just snuggling.
Edward was wearing dress shoes and a nice suit with a gold tie clasp that matched the gold ring on his finger. And he had a Panama hat tilted over his face, almost as if he was like napping and put it over his face to block the sun. Like it looked like they had been laying there sunbathing, which is why presumably these teenagers didn't realize they were dead at first. Meanwhile, Eleanor's blue velvet hat was on the ground behind her head, almost like she was using it as like a little pillow. And she was wearing a blue and red polka dot dress that was described as clearly lower quality than Edward's suit. So there we already have like the social class discrepancy.
Wow, and just the description of the news, it's already letting you know
it's already, yes, exactly. It's rough. She also had a brown silk scarf wrapped around her neck. So police realized pretty quickly they were just over the county border. So one of them said, "This is no case of ours," and just fucking like pieced out.
He was like, I know this is going to be a wild ride and I'd want nothing to do with it.
Right? I feel like some police force would be like, "No, this is our..." Well, maybe I just watched too much Criminal Minds, but I feel like there's that trope of like, "No, this is our case. No, this is our case." But this guy's like, "It is not mine. You can have it."
He went,
okay.
I was gonna quit next week anyway. Please don't make me do this.
Respect. Maybe he was retiring. I don't know. But he was like, "I don't want to be part of this." So they went back to the house, got a hold of Somerset County Police from Franklin Township and said, "Hey, we got a case for you. We don't want it." So as all this fucking rigmarole is happening, a reporter catches wind of what's going on. And he is from a newspaper called the Daily Home News. And he arrives and immediately starts inspecting the bodies before the police have even like notated anything.
Mm-hmm.
He found some sheets of paper with handwriting on them, sort of ripped up into big pieces and like stacked between the couple. They were love letters from Eleanor to Edward. Now I have a sample of these love letters. Would you like me to read them to you?
More than anything on this earth.
Okay, excellent. So Eleanor had written this to Edward. "Oh, honey, I am fiery today.
Oh,
Burning." Your reaction already. It's like a whole paragraph.
Immediately, this feels like when you held my hand on stage and sang me a love letter.
That's why when you said you want me to read this more than anything else, I was like, "Oh, okay. I'm gonna fucking take my chance and run with it now."
I thought it was gonna say like some Nicholas Sparks shit. Okay, I know what direction we're heading now. Let's go.
"Oh, honey, I am fiery today. Burning, flaming love. The Lord is always near." Did you know which direction we were going? No.
No. Why is the Lord involved in this now? Okay.
Because he's always near, What the fuck do you think?
Okay, keep going.
"The Lord is always near in whatever we do, even in our physical closeness." Okay, yikes. "For we know he meant for his children to taste deeply of all things."
Ew, taste what? What are we tasting?
Basically, I think she was implying like our physical romance, our passion is A-okay with God because he wants his children to feel deeply and like feel the passions of the earth. It's like, okay, whatever you need to tell yourself to sleep at night, you know? If the Lord is in bed with you, whatever you say.
I would assume since you're having an affair with a reverend, he would have something to say about lust, but I guess he's really ignoring
I think
a lot of things
like
right
leaning
now.
into it. Like, no, God likes this. This is different. God likes this one. He's into it on this page, on this one.
Okay.
So here's another note. "Sweetheart, my true heart, I know there are girls with more shapely bodies, but I'm not caring what they have. I have the greatest part of all blessings, a noble man's deep, true, eternal love. How impatient I am and will be. I want to look up into your dear face for hours as you touch my body close."
Oh, gross. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm sure I know that's like, I don't know what's wrong with me.
But so like skittish about.
I just when look, I have it in the back of my mind that publicly everyone's going to hear me listening to this, and it really freaks me out because I feel like it's already a private moment between two people I don't know, and now I have to hear it, and you're telling it to me.
Okay.
It's a lot of intimacy.
I understand. I will say there was a part, I didn't keep this in my notes, but there was one article that mentioned that I think it's actually an excerpt from a book, but the author mentioned that one court clerk had to read this transcript aloud to the courtroom, and he was like burning red, like so embarrassed.
I'm sure.
I'm like, imagine having to draw straws to be that guy who has to read these aloud on the stand. Like,
you know, everyone, all of his buddies were like kind of like laughing, like kids in class.
The back row. Yeah. Like trying to poke fun at him. And this is like 1922. Like, now we hear scandalous shit all the time, but like back then, you know, that was like, whoo, hot
also,
stuff.
like, but also, what a weird way to like say to also like body shame in the same breath, where it's like, I'm in love with you, but
Yeah.
also like I've seen better. But like
No,
have
she said that about
you.
herself.
Oh no. Well, that's even worse because
It
she feels
is.
that way about herself.
She basically said, I know there are girls with more shapely bodies, but I don't care because
Oh.
I have you. But also, like, she was regarded as like a beautiful woman. So, you know, I don't know why she's being so self-deprecating, but I guess it's just built into our society.
I mean, it just lets you know that some things in history just never change.
That's true. That's so
What
true.
a shame.
What a shame. And I do have a response from the pastor here, okay? I'm going to read the pastors, and then I promise I'm done. For now.
Oh, yeah, for now, okay.
Okay. The pastor's replies were equally as passionate. Darling Wonderheart, he had written. I just want to crush you for 2 hours.
What the fuck? Okay. I say that about like cute puppies. Like I want to like squeeze you, you're so cute. But crush, I know he meant it in a different way than I do with puppies.
I hope so. Yeah, I mean, Jesus Christ. I thought that was a given, but thank you for clarifying.
Crush is that's a wild way to say this.
It is. I want to crush you for 2 hours? Like, what a very specific kink. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but it's
Is that just a really
time.
aggressive way of saying I want to like be on top of you?
I guess so. And I'm like, to me, I'm like, oh, that sounds nice because I like a weighted blanket, not in like a sexual way,
I'll
but just
let
like
Blaze know.
someone can just lay on me and like suppress my nervous system. That would be delightful. You know what I mean? But I don't think that's what he meant.
What was maybe was it slang back then that we just don't know anymore, and so it sounds
Maybe.
crazier to us? Maybe that was normal then.
I want to crush you, 1920s. It looks like there aren't many great matches for your search. Oh, well. Cool.
Oh no.
Never mind.
Interesting.
Cool.
What an odd way to say that.
It is, right?
To say that.
I was like, what am I looking at right now? Like, I just don't know. It feels like it shouldn't be said aloud, but I also am like, but what does it mean? Like, I don't know.
Like, I know what it means, but I still want it to be changed.
I still don't like it. He says, I just want to crush you for 2 hours. I want to see you Friday night, our road, where we can let out unrestrained that universe of joy and happiness we call ours.
Okay, the rest of it was fine. But like,
yeah, and so,
crush was crazy.
That part was crazy. So he would sign his own letters as DTL, which was short for Deine treue Liebhaber, thy true lover in German, because she spoke German. And then Mrs. Mills, I thought it was going to say DTF, and I was like, whoa, he is ahead of his
DTL,
time.
down to love. He was really DTC, down to crush, but you know.
Down to crush. It's like when they write to like Dear Abby, and it's like down to crush in Daytona. Like, how do I find someone to crush for 2 hours?
Well, speaking of like DTF, like it does feel very Jersey Shore because they call it smushing because they are smashing because they smash into each other, which is so gross.
So crushing.
Crush and smash. I guess it's the same concept.
They're a little too close for my liking.
Yeah.
So he would sign it thy true lover in German, and Eleanor would sign hers babykins.
Why? That was the grossest part of it all.
I know, it's the worst part. I saved the best for last. They would call each other babykins. So yeah, that's cool.
Okay. I'm so happy that they're happy. That's all I got to say about it.
Yeah. So anyway, if that information weren't enough to identify these two, it was pretty obvious because the killer had also placed Edward's calling card, like his business card, at his feet, like propped up on one of his shoes to identify him, which also feels really gross and creepy.
That's a bold move for the killer to be like, and by the way, here's who it is. Like
here's
giving
his phone
them
number. Yeah.
Like that's such in a terrible way, but still a power move of being like, oh, you're gonna wonder who this person is. Let me hand you a clue because I'm that confident it doesn't matter.
Yeah, since you probably
Like,
won't
let me give
figure
you a
it out.
head start trying to figure out who I am.
Ooh, it is like a head start. But unfortunately, they didn't take advantage of the head start because they were like, never mind, this isn't our fucking problem. I'm going to call a different police department. And so while the Somerset County police are on their way, a crowd gathers and like this place turns into a fucking mob scene. So I don't know how back then, like people at the time were so shocked. They were saying in minutes, like hundreds of people, thousands of people started just swarming this place. And I'm like, in a day before social media, like how did people get the word out so fast? Like it, and this was not a big area. This was not a populated area. It was like a pretty small park, like kind of out of the way. And people just fucking came in droves to see these bodies.
That's wild. It really is. Like, how did like there had to have been a town crier where he just Paul revered his way through town,
a little trumpet or something. I mean, this place got fucking swarmed and it was a total circus. They were passing around evidence like in a circle, like amongst the audience.
Like a
they
show
were
and tell?
Yes. They were like passing around the calling card. Somebody like picked up the blue velvet hat and her scarf. Like they were like playing dress up. It's really macabre, you know. And every time I've like listened to someone cover this story, they kind of say like, I'm so shocked and I can't believe it was such a different time. And I'm like, honestly, if the police didn't cover up a crime scene, this probably still happened today. I don't have any doubt that people would like swarm a crime scene if they had the ability.
Oh no. People would at least people would certainly take stuff. They can then either try to sell it or like put it in their own weird collection. Or people would at the very least take pictures. Somebody would Instagram live it. Yeah. I mean, but the picking up clothing that probably has blood all over it is crazy.
It's really far. And you know, I bet it's also that kind of mob mentality of like, well, everyone else got to touch it, so I guess I'll do it. You know, like it doesn't
like
feel
diffusion of responsibility or whatever.
Yes. It doesn't feel as taboo if everyone else has already tried on the hat, you know? And so not only were they taking the stuff like off the bodies, they were also peeling like bark and branches off this poor crabapple tree as souvenirs. And to the point that the tree had no bark left. And eventually, I probably even put this in my notes later, but eventually somebody dug the entire tree up and just took it home.
Wow.
Like, what a bizarre, like, what are you going to do with that? I don't know. Sell it on eBay?
But I mean, that's such a good point that you're making of like, and we said it earlier for something else, but like some things just don't fucking change. Like like Zach Bagans in 1922 would have been the one to dig up the tree.
100%. Yes. And make it like a sideshow. And that's it's basically what happened. Like people were taking pieces of bark and just taking them home as souvenirs and showing them off. And people started selling dirt. So the tree got torn to pieces. This poor little tree had nothing to do with it. And so people started digging up dirt. But then again, some things never change because other people started just digging up random dirt from other places and saying this is like dirt from the crime scene. So they weren't even selling actual dirt from the crime scene. They were selling soil like from their garden and saying, I have a little bag of crime scene dirt for you. And people were fucking eating this shit up, like buying it, making a spectacle.
I mean, we're trying, I know you're like, not to get too high in the sky about this. So like, I don't want to get all like philosophical and deep, but I really thought social media was part of the problem of like how we got to who we are. But it's nice to know that even in a world without any technology, we are still trash bags. Like
Great
it still
point.
happened.
Like people are still scamming each other. Like,
yeah.
No, 100%. It's almost like social media just kind of propagated it or like allowed it to be easier for people. But it seems like people were always this way.
And like apparently the morbid curiosity and all that.
Yes. I mean, we've talked about like places where like barns that were just torn apart plank by plank by people who were just like curious onlookers and wanted a piece of the crime scene. And so, I mean, it's just some things never change. So of course, this compromises the whole scene. I mean, there are literally people there. Like, okay, this reminds me of your Mammoth Cave story. There are people there selling balloons and popcorn. I mean, there's 2 dead people under this tree, and they're selling fucking popcorn and hot dogs. it's like a circus, like a true spectacle circus. So police show up, and like all of this has already been going on because it's too late. Like the crowds have descended. And even though the scene was completely compromised, it didn't really matter because police barely collected any evidence anyway. They didn't even photograph the bodies. And I actually do have a photograph for you. It's from far away, so you can't really see anything that dark, but or like that specific or grotesque. But here's just a picture that someone else took of the bodies. I assume this is like they've been moved around a little bit.
Oh, definitely. They've been moved
the hat
around. He's not wearing
not
his
on his
hat.
head anymore. Yeah, their bodies are
And like
farther apart,
far away from each other.
Yeah. So like this has been totally compromised, but that's how long these bodies were there, like long enough for people to take photos of them in a completely different position than
Which
they
is
were.
wild that like I'm not saying like, oh, I get it, like take a piece of bark from the experience. Like I understand that on its own is fucked up. But like there's like tiers to how fucked up it can get, and I feel like seeing bodies with gunshot wounds to the head and just dragging them around just to put them in different poses like snow angels, like that's crazy.
Ugh. They're like that. Yeah, that you'd think that would be like too human, like too
inhuman,
real,
humane.
Yeah, like too close to home, like too far to be touching a dead person.
If I saw a dead body, no way would I move it, especially just to repose it. Like, what the hell?
Especially with like a crowd of onlookers. I mean, it just feels so gross. So
it feels really disrespectful to like their
absolutely.
Like if they knew that after they died, no one was like standing next to them crying. Everyone was just like posing with them, like
trying their hats on. Like, it's like a photo booth. Like it's really macabre. So both victims were quickly buried without like being properly analyzed or autopsied, and police had collected almost no evidence from the scene whatsoever. So they decided to start questioning suspects instead. So of course, first suspects are the spouses, Jim and Frances. But as soon as police question them, they both insist they have no idea about any affair. They do not believe that their partners were unfaithful to them. They claim they have no idea. And they swear up and down that they're happy, healthy, their marriages are fine. Jim said Edward was one of his closest friends. Frances said she and Eleanor were very close, and she reportedly paid for Eleanor's casket and burial. Like, they immediately claim like no part in this.
I mean, I guess technically even the love letters could have just been written by a random person to like make a point, you know?
To like show. Yeah, that's true. And they were like, what do we write? Say you want to crush her and call her babykins. Right. It's like, okay, I guess that's effective. So police questioned both of them at length about the affair, and they apparently doubled down on their denial. And I was listening to I think it was True Crime All the Time, Unsolved, cover this, and they talked about, and so I couldn't find the source anywhere, which is why I'm referencing the actual episode I listened to, but they were saying that the spouse of Eleanor, Jim, tried to claim that the love letters were from Eleanor to her kids.
No.
I know. Like
a confirmed no from me only.
That's
but
a big old no. Yeah.
That's what was that, like God wants us to touch each other or something?
Oh,
no.
Gosh. Yeah. I mean, it like what?
So that's a no.
No, it's a no. It's a no. That's like all I can say. I think we all hopefully agree on that.
Yeah, please. If you don't, you need to look within immediately.
Yeah. So police tried to determine where the two spouses were on the night of, or at least before the bodies were found, because from what they could tell, it had been like 2 days since the two of them had been killed. So that night, Frances had been spotted leaving the church in the middle of the night. And when they asked why she was leaving the church in the middle of the night, she told police she had gone there looking for Edward when she realized he never came to bed that night. Jim had not been seen at the church by anyone, but he also told police he had gone to the church in the middle of the night as well, looking for Eleanor when she didn't come home. So apparently both of them went to the church. Neither of them saw each other, so they either they're lying, one of them's lying, or they just happened to miss each other. And apparently Jim said he turned the lights on at the church, and Frances said, nope, there were no lights on. It was all dark. So we don't know if this is a lie or if it's just like really convenient timing. But either way, both of them claimed to go to the church to look for their spouse. Apparently, Eleanor and Edward were planning to meet up that night for their tryst, and they had both been spotted by passersby headed toward Philip's farm, quote, in a dreadful hurry. Mysterious. Several people near the farm, this is like where the Lover's Lane is, reported hearing gunshots and a woman scream between 9 p.m. and midnight. Based on those accounts, along with the amount of blood at the scene, investigators determined that Eleanor and Edward were killed where they were found, not moved there post-mortem.
Okay.
That was like the only determination police made correctly, because the crime scene had been horribly contaminated. They hadn't done a detailed autopsy. Like, they really just missed out on a lot of clues. And they ended up having to exhume the bodies to determine the cause of death. Like, they hadn't even determined cause of death. And this is a murder.
Oh
they
my
just
God. There's
buried them.
Who was in charge of training these police officers?
I have no idea. But the first one said, we don't want to do it. So
Right.
they called the next one. So it already started off rough, you know? Like, journalists got there before police did. Like, that's how bad this was. So
Right.
they did exhume the bodies, and it turns out Eleanor had been shot 3 times in the head, and Edward had only been shot once. Now, this is where it gets pretty graphic. Eleanor had also been nearly decapitated post-mortem, which was extremely intimate and violent.
Ooh.
And, yikes, her tongue and larynx had been removed.
Oh, what does that mean symbolically? There's something there, isn't there?
So, the thing most people speculate is that because she was a singer in the choir and she was known for her beautiful voice, the tongue and the larynx were symbolic in that way.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Just really gruesome. And so to think, like, it definitely, like, I think FBI, what do they call it? One of the, oh my God, Christine, you watch so much Criminal Minds. What are they called? Where they, what is wrong with me? Criminal profilers. I feel like they'd have a field day with this because it's like so obviously symbolic, at least to me. And she was so brutally attacked, and he was just shot once in the head and left alone.
I feel like then it was the wife. His wife.
That seems to be most people's like inclination based on
because
the anger toward the woman.
Even though, like, if someone's cheating on you, you should be mad at the person cheating on you, not the other person. A lot of people get angry at the other person instead.
It's that
and I
displaced
feel like
blame. Yes. And
I feel like she would
homewrecker type comments and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, and so and the anger about her singing, like, that could really play into it. So this is all stuff they did not know because they buried them and then had to exhume them and then found out that her tongue was gone. Like, they didn't even do a fucking autopsy at all. So, of course, it's, like, unbelievable that none of this was notated at the time of the murder. The media is all over this, and police are so far behind that, like, they are not anywhere near an arrest. Now, as you mentioned earlier, the 1920s, like, this is such a time of upheaval, and it would, like, continue to be, because for years, papers and the radio had covered, like, World War I, the 1918 flu epidemic, and people were just exhausted. And now it's the 1920s. It's the roaring 20s. People are looking for thrills. People are looking for distractions. And so these fancy little things called tabloids were introduced to the populace. And they first became popular in the UK around the turn of the century. And a tabloid basically covered social gossip, scandals, and crime. And one popular tabloid proudly advertised, quote, 90% entertainment, 10% information.
Honestly, at least they were honest about it.
That's what I'm saying. Like, at least they're self-aware, you know? It's like we say we're not reporters, we're entertainers because we don't want the we don't want the not the responsibility.
Yeah.
That's the wrong way to put it. But like, I don't want anyone to feel like I think I'm like a fucking New York Times reporter or something.
Yeah.
There's a certain point where it's like entertainment rather than real reporting. And so this is a huge story for the tabloids to just fucking run with. They used huge photos instead of excess text, which traditional reporters, of course, found like cheap journalism to put photos in. They were smaller, they were easily like taken around town to read, and they were cheap, and they were much more available to the working class for that reason. And they also made room for more women reporters because there was just more room, I guess, for women to step in and become journalists at a tabloid than a traditional newspaper. And several women actually became highly paid and well-trusted, like high-profile reporters in the tabloids, which is kind of cool.
Oh, wow.
I feel like that'd be a cool
they had to
documentary.
Well, they're women, so they only know how to gossip. So I guess you have to start at the low rung, and then eventually they trust what you're saying, and then you become a real reporter.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's probably how it went. So, you gotta take what you can, I guess. So people, of course, became obsessed with tabloid media and the salacious topics that they covered. And, a lot of traditional reporters called this like lowbrow journalism, but a tabloid editor of the time said that they represented America's transition into a new era because, quote, tabloids were just as inevitable as jazz. They are feared because they are jolting the pillars of conservatism. Ooh la la.
Okay.
So people were into it. And people especially were drawn to stories involving sex, money, and murder. And it was said that the best story involved all three. So ding, ding, ding. Here it is on a silver platter for the tabloids. So it was no surprise that this case became a media frenzy. This was like next level. There's an heiress involved, like two people from totally different social classes, an affair, romance, intrigue, the whole 9 yards. Interestingly, too, Charlotte, Eleanor's daughter, who was a teenager at the time, made the story even more popular because she was a flapper.
Oh.
And so because she was like kind of embodying this like new age feminist movement, she became like a character in the story as well. And so it added even more intrigue and drama to the whole thing.
Wow. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was quite a tale. So Charlotte was young, she was pretty, she was ambitious, she was like this picture of like the new era of the 20s. And weirdly enough, Frances, the Johnson & Johnson heiress, the wife, she sent a letter to Charlotte. So Edward's wife, now widow, sent a letter to Eleanor's daughter, Charlotte, saying, don't worry, you'll be looked after.
Ew.
Isn't that sketchy?
I mean, now I'm starting to think it's her this whole time.
That's
for sure.
what I'm thinking.
If she felt like she needed like a contingency plan or something.
Doesn't it almost feel like she's like, there's some guilt or something there, like some responsibility? But maybe it was just a responsibility of like, you come from a poor family and I'm really wealthy. I don't know. Or maybe she was just close to the family. I'm not sure. But apparently, even though she sent this letter to Charlotte saying she would be looked after, Charlotte did not like Frances. So
sure.
She felt Frances was too old school, too conservative, too Victorian. She didn't like flappers. And Charlotte actually suspected that Frances was involved in her mother's murder. And
okay, well, that does it for me.
Right? And she spoke out publicly about it. So talk about like adding more fuel to the fire. Now this young woman is saying, I think Frances had something to do with my mother's death.
Can you imagine,
Lord.
Can you imagine if she, let's say Frances wasn't responsible and she was just trying to do like a nice thing and like
poor Fran. I know. I
the response
totally agree.
Is like publicly being called out as like, I think you're the murderer of my mother. And like she was just trying to do a nice thing.
Thanks a lot for trying to support me.
Yeah.
You murdering bitch. It's like, Jesus. She can't. No. If she's innocent, she can't catch a fucking break, this woman. She's called homely. She's called like ugly and like only someone
her
who's married
husband's cheating
her for
on
money.
her.
Now she's a fucking now her husband's cheating on her. Now she's a murderer. I mean, Lord.
God. Oh man, yeah, but I do think if Charlotte has a gut feeling, I could ride that gut feeling. It does sound like Frances is trying to like tie up loose ends or
It's a little
something that she
weird.
would have caused. Yeah,
I agree. And like none of it is, real hardcore evidence, but it's definitely intriguing. And I think that's probably why most people are kind of on our side with this. Like that's what most people tend to believe. So when Charlotte realized that local police are basically fumbling her mother's case, I think that's like understatement of the century, but whatever. She wrote a letter to the New Jersey governor, and she said she was worried that justice would fail her family because they didn't have money for legal funds. And when he didn't respond to her letter, she went to his office herself to ask for a meeting. I just picture her in a flapper's dress. I highly doubt that's what she was wearing, but I'm like, what a sight. She like storms in and asks to see the governor, and he's apparently not in at the moment. So when he found out that she had come looking for him, he actually publicly addressed her in a letter that was published in the newspapers, promising to put state investigators on the case. He said she didn't need to worry about money because he would personally see to the case with state resources. So,
I love how petty these people are, where it's like, I won't look you in the eye, but I will make the paper tell you and
you
everybody my thoughts.
Yeah, you can find out about it in the newspaper. It's like, I don't
like you, and you better know about that on page 6.
Yeah. No, but he's saying he's going to fund this. He's going to put his own money, like state money, toward solving it.
Okay. I didn't know if that was like a dismissive way of being like, it'll get handled.
Instead of like actually, I think he basically was put on the spot because she's like talking to all the papers and tabloids, and she's like, I went to see him and he didn't even respond to my letter. And so he's like, no, look, everyone, I care about this case. That's my understanding of it.
Well, what a good way though. If that was her tactic of like embarrass him until it gets handled.
Just fucking pressure him by showing up at his office and then talking about it in the tabloids. Yeah, it fucking worked too. Because this guy's saying he's going to put state money toward it and he's personally going to see to it that this thing gets solved. So, of course, now the public's even more fired up because the governor of New Jersey is like personally invested in this case. And an ambitious teenager has like convinced the governor to get involved. And so this is like such a tumultuous and progressive almost situation. And there's all this pressure from the media, of course, and now the governor. And so police in both Somerset and Middlesex County are like scrambling to make an arrest. And they know it does not look good in the papers. So interestingly enough, suspicion soon turned to Frances's brothers. So one of her brothers was a skilled marksman who worked for arms dealers, but he seemed to have a solid alibi. Her other brother, William, became a suspect because police thought he was unusual. That's pretty much all they had to go on. His name was William. He was called Willie by locals. He was a friendly man who hung out in the Hungarian immigrant neighborhoods. He was known to sit on like stoops and chat with people all day. He would even help. He's also obviously from the same Johnson & Johnson fortune, so he was known to help people out with money sometimes, sending gifts to neighborhood kids. He had a lot of trouble holding a job, so he would spend most of his days hanging out at the local fire station, and like he was actually called by the firefighters an honorary member of the firefighters. He obviously was not allowed to actually fight fires, but he was allowed to dress up in the firefighter uniforms and like try on the helmets. And many people describe him as childlike, but he was actually extremely intelligent and could like memorize entire books of facts and like share them with people. So in retrospect, it's believed he was autistic in a time before that was a diagnosis. And so, looking back, people just called him like weird, and it's like he's not uneducated or unintelligent. It's just he maybe doesn't have the same social skills, or he has different skills than other people, So looking back, that's why police were like, this guy's weird. Let's fucking home in on him. And
great.
Yeah. So the problem was William actually did own a revolver that matched the bullet wounds. So they take that gun and they're like, well, we think we have a clue here. Turns out the gun had actually been like shaved down and permanently disabled for William's safety. Like he owned this gun, but his family had like disabled it so that he wouldn't accidentally hurt himself or harm someone else. So this gun didn't even work. So like couldn't be him. Strangely, his fingerprint was also on the calling card that was on the shoe of William.
Interesting.
Of Edward, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But it had also been like handed around this huge
so
group
many
of people. Yeah, and he had actually spent a lot of time with Edward as his brother-in-law, so like it's not that weird. He probably just had picked it up at some point and looked at it.
Sure.
But still, because, you know, he was vulnerable, police picked William up one night randomly and interrogated him for hours without a lawyer present. And they didn't even notify his family. And luckily for William, he really didn't say anything that incriminated him. And so they eventually had to release him. And when Frances, his sister, found out about this, she was pissed. She was outraged that her brother had been interrogated without any notice, without any representation. And now the tabloids jump on that. And they're like, wow, not only do the police have zero leads, but they take this poor guy who's, you know, beloved in our neighborhood and like fucking treat him like a criminal. And so people are now believing like this investigation is going nowhere. Police are getting nowhere. And there's just no faith in the police force whatsoever. So police circle all the way back to Pearl and Ray, the 15 and 23-year-olds who were mushroom hunting, wink, at Lover's Lane, allegedly. Yeah. And they had discovered the bodies, and so police were like, let's get back to them and question them again. So Edward had actually been discovered without his gold watch that he always wore, and without any cash, which he always had on him. And so police were like, well, maybe Pearl and Ray tried to rob Edward, panicked, and killed them. But also, my thought is like, there was a whole crowd trying on their clothes. Like, someone probably took his fucking watch and walked away with it.
Right.
You know? Like,
great point.
As much as I'm like, oh, that's weird that he didn't have cash on him. Like, well, yeah, but people were trying on her brown scarf that covered up
anyone
her fucking missing larynx. Like,
someone could have even like just openly said, I'm taking his watch. He doesn't need it anymore.
Yeah. My first instinct when I read that was like, someone took it. Someone has it. I bet you.
Yeah.
Like, just some looky-loo, and then felt too, I don't know. It's probably in somebody's like safe deposit box somewhere, and they don't even realize.
Sure.
So allegedly both had been missing before the crowds arrived at the scene, but again, they didn't take any photos. They didn't write anything down, so we don't even really know that. So still, police interrogated Pearl, Ray, and two of their friends that they had been hanging out with that night, 21-year-old Clifford Hayes and 15-year-old Leon Kaufman. After the first interrogation, police didn't have much to go on because according to their story, the three men had seen Pearl with her no-good father, who appeared to be drunk. And Pearl was crying that night, and Ray said he planned to fight Pearl's dad. Now, remember, Ray and Pearl are in a kind of scandalous relationship as he is significantly older than her. So it was rumored that Pearl's dad was not only violent and abusive, but actually sexually assaulted her. And so they see Pearl crying. They appeared to see her no good father somehow abusing her. And Ray says, I'm going to fight Pearl's dad. And Clifford revealed that he had a pistol with him and that they could use that pistol to fight Pearl's dad if they needed it to protect themselves. So Ray, Clifford, and Leon started following Pearl and her dad, but they apparently lost them in the dark at some point and it was late. So Leon, who was 15, was like, I gotta go home, and left the other two 23-year-olds or 21 and 23-year-olds to their own devices. And they are still on a mission to find Pearl's dad. So they see a couple under a crabapple tree in the dark, and they think it is Pearl and her dad, so they sneak up on them. Without warning, Clifford takes out his pistol and shoots both of them. Ray yells, "My God, you have made an awful mistake," and both men fled the scene immediately. So this is what they tell police. They even sign a confession confirming the story, and police announce they are arresting Clifford.
Wow.
The problem with this story is that The confession was extracted after police had kept Ray and Clifford awake for 24 hours in separate rooms. And for the full 24 hours, detectives aggressively questioned both men and basically forced a confession out of them. It's like, it's just a coerced confession. There's no reality to it. So even as Clifford was being removed from questioning for his arrest, his lawyer shared a statement saying, and this is on Clifford's behalf. So Clifford said, "Do you think I'd be fool enough to stay around here for 3 weeks if I had committed this crime? I am innocent and they know it, and so does everyone in New Brunswick." Now, luckily for Clifford, he was a very well-liked and well-known person. He had been honorably discharged from the Navy and had served in the war. He was known to be very kind and loving. And so people immediately were like, you're trying to tell us he just randomly murdered these two people and shot them point blank? It doesn't make sense. So, again, the police are failing, like, in the eyes of the public.
At this point, like, I get why that original cop was like, I don't want this. Like, I'm just getting...
Me too. If I'd known what a mess this would be.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my God.
So, when this comes out, even Charlotte, Jim, and Francis, so the two spouses, a widow, widower, and then the daughter, all spoke out saying, we don't believe Clifford or Ray had anything to do with their deaths. And they said investigators are just fishing, and that's all this is.
Yeah.
So, even one of Edward's sisters said, we are all mystified by the arrest of this boy. I simply cannot understand it. None of us can. So, like, it's just a mess. Meanwhile, Pearl comes forward to defend Clifford. She says her boyfriend, Ray, had once threatened her with a knife. So if anyone had murder in them, it was Ray, not Clifford.
Okay.
And
it's like, listen, I know them better. Just trust me on this one.
Just trust it's my boyfriend, not the other one. It's like, okay.
Jeez.
But what's more is Clifford only confessed to shooting the couple. He didn't know about the cut throat. He didn't know about that because, like,
how would he?
And so that part just was not even taken into account. So basically, it was not them. Anyway, in the end, there was so much public outrage that police realized they had, like, really fucked up by arresting Clifford. And so they interview Ray one more time, and Ray's like, yeah, I made that whole story up, and I feel terrible.
Oh, my God.
So he gets 2 years in prison for perjury.
Oh, my God.
I'm like, you fucking, like, forced him to confess to... Whatever. Okay. So he basically gets prison time, 2 years. And meanwhile, police release Clifford, and he arrives home to hundreds of locals waiting to welcome him. Like,
oh my God.
Thank God you're free. We knew you were innocent.
You're free.
Yay. So now the murder investigation is back to square one. I argue it never left square one, but whatever. And
good point.
This is when I think my favorite witness of all time steps forward. Her name is Jane Gibson, otherwise known as the Pig Woman.
Oh my God. Wow.
She's known as the Pig Woman because she raised hogs near...
Oh, thank God.
I know. Near Derussy Lane, where they were found. She said that at 9 p.m. on the night of the murder, her dog started barking, and she suspected someone was stealing her crops, so she got on her mule, as you do, and rode down the lane. She saw 4 figures in the dark under the crabapple tree. She heard a woman scream, "Don't," 3 times. Then there were gunshots, and another woman cried, "Oh, Henry." She claimed the pair at the scene was Frances Hall and her cousin, Henry Carpenter. Jane said she returned a few hours later looking for a shoe that she had lost in the commotion. I guess it fell off her mule. I don't know.
Okay.
And when she was looking for the shoe, she saw Frances Hall sobbing over her husband's dead body. So finally, prosecution is like, oh, we finally have something to pin this on. So the grand jury convenes to decide whether or not to indict Henry, the cousin, along with 3 anonymous suspects. And after several days of testimony, Jane Gibson, their like star witness, starts making people a little skeptical because while she was insisting she was telling the truth, when she was asked to look at Henry and be sure that that was who she saw, she said, "I feel that he is." And so people were like, okay, well, you obviously don't seem very convinced. And she said, well, it was really dark. So already like not a good start. And then, it gets worse because her credibility was also called into question when several neighbors said she was the sort of woman who would make something like this up for attention.
Oh,
which is like fucking rude.
Wow. I wonder if she. Oh, I feel like I'll lose sleep for the rest of my life if I heard that was my reputation and I was just learning it in this really intense moment.
In this horrible moment. And you're like, that's what they've thought about me this whole time. And then the newspaper's like, oh yeah, the pig woman. I'd be like, are you serious right now? Like, hello? Can I not get any respect?
Wow. I would name a woman in this story who has had a good time in this story.
No, exactly. Not a one.
Them.
Maybe the flapper, maybe. But her mom's dead, so maybe not. I don't know. It's all bad. So initially, the press had been really kind to Jane as like, they described her as a sturdy witness and comparing her to the pioneer women of old. But like really quickly, they turned on her and started digging into her marriage history because she had been married twice, God forbid. They started attacking her character. And during her testimony, one tabloid described her as the following. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Quote, erratic, obese, disheveled, and suffering from a mortal organic disease. Where did they come up with this shit?
That's so fucking brutal.
Literally, where do they come up with this shit? Like, how could you come up with something so fucking rude? Like,
I like how you started it with they were really nice at first. All they did was call her pig woman, but you know, by the end
they were like, she's a pioneer pig woman.
Also, like Amy Schumer had a special like forever ago where she was talking about how like she got hit on by a guy and he was like, I like you because you're sturdy. And she was like, what the fuck does that mean? So when you said they called her sturdy, I was like, oh my God, and a pig woman.
Yeah, you know that they were talking about her appearance. And I remember in high school, a kid said I heard from a friend that this other kid said I would be cute, but I'm too boxy to be cute. And it's literally like lived in my brain rent free from the age of 15 until now.
My bully called me Big Bird, and I still think about it.
I'm sorry, that's so rude.
And I found out because I was reading her emails that she was talking about me to somebody. So she didn't even say. She didn't even say it to my face.
That's even worse to find out it's behind your back, because then it's like, they're not even just trying to be funny. Like they mean that insult.
Well, it was an email. It was a subject line that said in her inbox, it said M. Schultz. And so I was like, obviously, I'm going to click that.
How stupid can you be? Yeah.
And then it was her and her little minion. They were just talking about me the whole time. And I still think about the Big Bird comment.
Like, very rude.
Literally been half my life ago, and I still think about it.
I know, me too. Literally half my life ago. Someone called me boxy, and I'm like, they said I would be attractive if I weren't so boxy. And I'm like, what
Christine,
does it mean?
Let me speak for all of the people who are like so goddamn thirsty for you that listen to the show. You are so
Mr.
smoking
Tarantula
hot.
Legs.
Okay, you know what? Actually, I take it fucking back. Goodbye.
No,
you're ugly and boxy.
Way. No. That's not what I meant. I meant it in the best way. That people love how tall you are.
Oh,
and
I didn't get that when you called me Tarantula Legs.
You called yourself Tarantula Legs, to be fair. I'm just reiterating. I thought this was building you up, but apparently it's just hitting a nerve. I'm sorry.
Christine, because nobody else is able to say it, I'll just speak for them. You were so smoking hot, and you
so
are
kind.
And not boxy, and even if you were, you'd still be smoking hot. So
don't tell Sam Fleming. I made that name up. Who called me that when I was 15.
That's interesting. You want to still protect their identity. I shout my bully's name everywhere. So what's if I did it on stage?
I remember that. I feel like he doesn't even know he ever said that. Like, it was so long ago, and he probably just said it in passing, and then someone told me, and like it burned into my mind. And I think probably he doesn't even know who I am. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those.
My bully knows who I am.
I'm sure of that. Yeah. Well, they had a whole email thread about you. So.
Well, also they were my bully from first grade to 12th grade. She was just terrible. But also, like, you know what? If you're gonna be a bully, be prepared that there is the slim chance that the person you're bullying one day is going to grow up to have a microphone in their face for work, and you might get mentioned. So
genuinely,
you wanted to act like that for 12 years? Oh well, Chelsea.
Literally, if being nice. Literally, if being nice is not going to convince you, then just picture your name splashed across a podcast, okay? Yeah. And then see what happens.
Sorry I grew up and now have an audience, and you treated me like crap for 12 years, so I guess I'm going to talk about it. Whoops.
Shape up.
I'm sure maybe I like to I like to think she's maybe nice now. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe she still up to her old tricks.
God.
Who would know? Who would know?
I want to find out.
I'm sure you'll find out way too much for no reason.
I'll do some digging.
Yeah.
I'll send you an email later called just Chelsea, like just how she did that to you with your name. I'll be like, and I'll hope she finds it someday. Anyway, so this just gets weirder because they're saying all these horrible fucking things in the tabloids about her, and the problem is she actually was really sick. Like, she was on her deathbed at this point, the pig lady, aka Jane, and they wheeled her in on a stretcher to testify. I have a picture.
Okay.
Hold on.
Also, can I ask why on a stretcher? Was she injured? I feel like you just said
she was on her death. I said she was on her deathbed. She was very ill and on her deathbed, so they wheeled her in on a stretcher. Here's a picture.
Oh wow. Okay. Very
like what the fuck? It's like a creepy old-timey hospital bed, and it's just a bunch of like men gathered around her while she's like laying flat.
It's really jarring. It's like
it is.
Is she like she's not? Is she even considered fit to testify or anything?
Well, good question, because apparently now that she had this like supposed disability, people were like, "How do we trust her?" You know, like she's not sturdy. She's weak and she can't testify. So now it's like I sent you like an actual Daily News article. Do you want to read the headline for everyone? I mean, come on.
Okay, I'm only laughing because this is just so fucking terrible.
It's horrible.
Pig woman identifies for.
Like, it's like, what the F?
Like, why can't we just say her name? But also, like, I mean, I get that this was like literally the like year tabloids were created, and there was just no rule or rhyme or reason. Like, it feels like it was a lawless land, those tabloids.
Yes, but they just fucking ran with it.
And I'm sure it was. I'm obviously Pig Woman is more catchy than anything else that would be respectful. I get that, but like, wow, in today's world, I just can't imagine anyone calling somebody that.
It's horrible. And what's even weirder, so people are already questioning her like testimony now because they're saying, how do we trust her? What's even wilder is her own mother was sitting in the courtroom the entire time she testified screaming, "She's a liar, a liar, a liar," the whole time her daughter was testifying.
Wow.
Like her own mother. I don't know why. I don't know what it means, but at this point, her testimony's shot. Nobody believes her. So after 5 days, the grand jury is like, we can't indict these people. Like, how are we? There's not enough evidence, and we don't trust her testimony. So Henry and the others walked free. Frances ended up filing a defamation lawsuit against the city, and I'm pretty sure against the Daily News or against one of these tabloids. And that defamation lawsuit was settled out of court. Jim's only comment was that it was a shame justice wasn't served. But basically, the story remained super popular for years. Every now and then a reporter or PI would like revisit it, and it would spark more public interest. And people just hoped that one day it would get solved. But it really wasn't until a decade later. Actually, you kind of did ask this question at the beginning. So about a decade later, the Lindbergh baby kidnapping became a huge story. And that's kind of when this story like lost the last of its popularity in the public eye. So that sort of replaced it as like the new big true crime story. And so it basically just fell out of the public spotlight. And For what it's worth, the case today is credited as America's first true crime story because no story in U.S. history had reached such a wide audience, like no true crime story. And it basically launched the popularity of tabloid media, which is why I assume it's sometimes called similar to the O.J. Simpson case, like just media frenzy, you know? So, although most people treated it like, unfortunately, exciting gossip, people like Charlotte desperately wanted justice for, you know, her mother, and she hoped eventually to hear a deathbed confession, maybe from Francis or from somebody else. But the case remains unsolved today, and everyone involved in the case is dead. So it's unlikely that we'll ever know who killed these two.
Wow.
And that's the story.
And also, like, it also is like just another PSA for like police training needs to be taken so much more seriously. They literally they found out after they exhumed the bodies that they had been shot 3 times. Like, what? Like,
what?
It's just another reminder that, you know, people that are dressed as authorities doesn't mean that they are the authority on something, and they really need to get it together.
That's so true. And one like fact I forgot to mention, which is probably not relevant, but Eleanor's bullet wounds also showed signs of gunshot residue, which means they were really, really close up. Yeah. And Edward's didn't. So it's almost like she just got such a more brutal demise or treatment.
And I wonder if it was because it was more personal for whoever killed them to hurt her, or if it was just because she was like a woman, or like
I know it's hard. It's like impossible to say, but it feels gut instinct. It feels like it was personal, especially with the throat and the tongue. And she was known as being this beautiful singer.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I don't know who it was, but I can't imagine it being anyone other than one of their spouses.
Right. And
it just
like
doesn't,
the fact that the
sense.
case was so bungled just makes me think like, well, probably they just didn't catch the right person. Like,
I mean, you know what the most like damning piece of evidence for me is that it has to be one of the 2 spouses, is that like everyone seems to have ignored after your initial telling of it, is like all those love letters. Like they had to be found. They had to be found. The only reason they were ripped up around them was because someone clearly found them, which means it was in one of their homes, which means they had access to their home.
Or they were in the church where you know, they kept them maybe at the church, because they had both sides. They had letters from Edward and from her. So maybe they were keeping them somewhere.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. Yeah. But I mean, that feels like, I mean, hello, the ripping up of 2 love letters.
Tearing up the love letters? Come on.
That's not even symbolic. That is directly...
That's like a classic trope.
Like someone was mad because of your love letters. Nobody other than spouses would give a shit.
Who
as much
else?
As...
Besides like a kid, maybe a child, but I don't think, or like, I mean, the family member, but like the son was 12. I mean...
But the love letters is like, that's not even a clue to me. Like that, it's like, I don't know what the right word is, but it's not a hunch. It's not even in hunch territory anymore.
It's
but like,
literally
if you're
right in front of your face,
murdered with a bunch of your own ripped up love letters back and forth with each other, the only person who would be that upset is a scorned lover.
So when you're cheating, exactly.
Like if I found a couple and I found out that they were cheating, and I found love letters between them and their side person, I wouldn't, first of all, feel the need to kill them, and I certainly wouldn't like be like, and by the way, here are all your love letters.
Yeah, like, you feel like if you were just like a parishioner of the church they worked at, like it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And there was one theory that they were maybe planning to elope, so maybe there was like, maybe they told. And you know what? There's one important thing I want to add real quick, which is probably obvious to everyone, but like reminder that she comes from this massive fortune. Like. Mm-hmm. Money can do so much. Like money can do anything. You can,
especially in the 20s with so little DNA and everything.
Yes, and honestly, they didn't have that.
You know, it'd be real fucking crazy if it was Frances, who is the heiress you're talking about. Imagine if she killed them and then like alerted the media herself, so she knew that everything would get touched.
She called TMZ and said
on herself,
scoop.
Mm-hmm. That'd be interesting because she probably knew people would fuck with it, and like it would be a
Holy
better chance of
shit.
her not getting caught.
Holy shit.
The name tag, the business
Yeah,
card,
the
that's
calling
still an
card.
interesting move. Like, I get that it's like I said power move earlier, but it does feel like, oh, I'm giving you a head start. But sorry, I just caught a fly in my hand.
I saw that with my own 2 eyes.
Am I the Karate Kid? That was crazy.
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
But I feel like
the calling card.
The calling card feels weird, and I get that it's like it's giving narcissism and cockiness though, and I feel like no one in this group, no one kind of showed signs of that. Maybe
it's kind of a weird. I wonder. That's when I want the profilers to get involved. I'm like, what does it mean? And I wonder what if the card was just amongst the letters, you know, and he was like, here's my calling card to Eleanor, like back when they first started talking, and maybe that's why it was in the letters, and they just were like, I don't know, who knows. But another weird circumstantial thing is that apparently it was either weeks or months following the murders, apparently Frances mailed her clothes, a bunch of her clothes, to Philadelphia and had them dyed black. So
she was what? So she was already preparing for a funeral.
No, it was after the murders. She after the funerals, after the murders, she had some of her clothes sent to get deep cleaned and then all dyed black. And it could be a mourning thing, or it could be those are compromised pieces of clothing. I don't know.
Oh, I was going to say it was a mourning thing because 100 years ago was the Winchester house story.
That's right.
And when her husband died, she wore black for a long time, 3 years or something. It feels like, but it still feels like she moved quickly. It feels like in this whole story, I never heard about Jim or Frances grieving their partners, which I'm sure they did in some way.
Right.
But it sounds like she immediately went into task mode, and it was which I guess is its own way of grief.
I think part of it also was that she had them mailed so far away, almost.
Yeah.
It didn't, to the people who knew her, they thought it was weird because they were like, why don't you go to your usual, tailor?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I guess that for some reason or another, there was a lot of suspicion about that fact. I don't really know why.
Well, she got away with it.
If she did it, she got away with it. Yeah.
Man, I think this is one of my favorite episodes we've done in a while.
I was thinking that during your story. I was like, this is what a story.
Eva, write that down. 336. in case we need an episode one day.
In case we somehow need to recommend something. We talked about Burl a lot, so.
Who could forget Burl? Well, Christine, well done, everybody. Well,
good
you
job,
and me.
Folks.
I guess, is that it until I see you when we record again?
Yeah, when do we record? Tomorrow? Probably.
Maybe. I'm not sure.
It's a listener's
we'll figure
episode.
It out.
I don't know. Who knows? Maybe not.
Oh, I'm so excited to go have a little lunch now, make myself a Sammy. Yeah, we're gonna have a good time. Well, thank you everybody for listening, and I guess I don't know.
Until next time.
Until next time. I had a plan and then it went away, so I guess we'll just leave you at.
As we always say.
And
that's
why
we
drink.